Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvel's Scientist to God, Spider-Gwen is crazy over me. Chapter 61. That's right, we just want to catch Norman, oh, yes, and his son. We have to repay their father and son for all the experiments we have experienced, haha. Jeff opened his mouth full of sharp teeth and laughed. Then, the rough voice filled the entire underpass. Dr. Connor looked at Jeff in wonder and asked, "Aren't you going to mess with Osborn?" "We got there just to catch the old guy from Norman. We became like this old guy from Norman's attention. We have a debt and a debtor. We will not provoke Osborn employees." Jeff saw Dr. Connor's honest appearance, then put him down and smiled at him. "Drive Connor, don't you say that your experiment needs a test product? By then Norman and your son will be your guinea pig." Quote. Dr. Connor remembered that his experiments were being forced by Norman. "The character of the lizard man Yazi will report immediately." He smiled sternly. "Okay, I will entertain them well at that time, and I will make them satisfied of." Harry drove his top sports car and was in a very happy mood. Could he be unhappy? The recently pursued university, Marie Jane, finally promised to have a meal at his house. This is an American custom. The boy will invite the person he likes to come to dinner. If the other person agrees, he will be willing to be his girlfriend. The girl asked the boy to come to dinner. Hai went to her house for dinner. Sitting on the co-pilot, Mary Jane was beautiful and moving, and she looked forward with a smile. Mary Jane laughed. "Harry, how did you and Peter become good friends? I think it's weird that you two, who are not in the same world at all, will become good friends." Harry laughed as he drove. "Peter is a very special person, he is easy to learn, and his brain is very smart. I think he will become a scientist in the future." "Oh," Mary giggled. "I know why you became good friends. You all love science, and you all want to be scientists in the future." "Yes, you're right," Harry grinned. "I have grown up to be a great scientist since I was a kid. Unfortunately, my talent is not good. Hey, if I can worship Dr. Yi, maybe he can be brilliant on the science road, but he is unwilling to accept me as a student." Quote. "Drive Yi," Mary curiously said. "Who is he? Is he great?" "Yes, a very good scientist. He is the smartest person I have seen in all these years. It took him only one day to perfect the formula of the rate of change that Dr. Connor has studied for more than 10 years. He also solved the genetic diseases of our Osborn family." Quote. Harry eloquently introduced Yi Hai's deeds. His expression was full of worship, but he was a little disappointed and distressed, because Yi Hai decided to kill him and was ashamed of him, which made him very angry. "I will definitely make a grade to make you look good," Harry thought in his heart. Yi Hai, Gwen's boyfriend. Mary has a preliminary understanding of Yi Hai. She has a beautiful pair of eyes and is very curious about Yi Hai. After a while, Harry's car drove into Osborn's mansion. The two just got out of the car. It was rare to see his father Norman walk out of the hall and stand at the door to greet the two. This behavior made Harry very touched. The former Norman has been very busy, never such a kind thing. "Dad." Harry walked excitedly to Norman, hugged his father tightly, and said excitedly, "Thank you." Norman felt a little guilty. "Harry, I have been busy with my work these years, and I have very little time to take care of you. This time you were able to take a girl home, indicating that you like this girl very much. As a father, I something said, well, my old guy." Quote. Boom. Suddenly the iron gate of Osborn's mansion was knocked flying. 3 huge lizards came in and ran towards the three like a whirlwind. The huge weight hit the ground with a heavy noise. The crowd was taken aback. Osborn's bodyguard immediately pulled out a gun and fired at the 3 lizardmen. The bullet hit the lizardmen, but the lizardmen were unharmed and quickly ran to the crowd. "Ripped a few bodyguards." "What?" Mary screamed, almost scared. Harry guarded her bravely, but the lizardman grabbed him with a huge claw, and threw it into the bag in his hand. "Has his father. This little girl is quite pretty. Shall we take it away?" The lizard man spoke, shocking Mary, and she was more frightened and confused. The head said, "Don't bring anyone you don't want to do, we leave here at once. Besides, she is just a human, not our lizard woman. I think it would be beautiful to turn her into a lizard woman." Quote. "We have no way to turn her into a lizard woman, we have no potion." "Isn't Dr. Connor doing this? I think she can make it up." "You're right, let's take her away." Shouting for escape, Mary yelled at her with a big bag. In Osborn's laboratory, the black girl who had been monitoring the lizardmen issued an alarm. Master, what new things have happened to lizardmen? What's the matter? Yi Haifa took the job in his hands and asked immediately. 3 lizardmen stormed into Osborn's mansion, snatching Norman and his son and a beautiful girl. Is there no one else? Yi Hai asked. No more. Yi Hai groaned a little and murmured to himself, I remember right, lizards are a kind of creature that must be reported. It seems that these lizards robbed Norman father and son for revenge. Should I go forward? Save them? Quote. Yi Hai thought for a while, and finally shook his head. Forget it, these 2 guys are dead, it will be more favorable for me to buy Osborn Industry. Well, my income is estimated to reach 100 billion in a few days, right? The plan to acquire Osborn can proceed. Spider-Man Peter is going crazy recently, his love partner Mary Jane and his friend Harry have been taken away by a group of lizards. Now I don't know how it will be. It's anxious to think of Peter. After class, I just hopped around the building in New York, hoping to find the traces of those lizards, but these lizards have been very peaceful recently and haven't seen where they are. Peter felt that he was not able to turn around so blindly. He had to find some help. He immediately thought of the police station, but the police were not friendly to him. The others thought about it, and it seemed to have no effect. Come alone. Yi Hai, maybe he can help me, thought Peter. Peter rushed towards Osborn, pasted it on the glass window of Osborn, and after a short walk, he came outside Yi Hai lab. Yi Hai immediately found him and laughed. Small spider, are you here to ask me about Harry and the girl you love? Peter immediately jumped into the window and ran to Yi Hai, surprised. Do you know who I am? Yi Hai Song said with a shoulder, you used to be my assistant, but unfortunately you like martial arts and do not like my boring research work. Peter pulled his hood down and said, how did you know me, Dr. Yi? It's very simple. I studied your blood genes. Special spiders have mutated you. You are a very lucky guy. Yi Hai looked at Peter's red uniform and laughed. But is your uniform too, mother? Why did you make him red? And don't you think that red is the most prominent color? You wear this uniform and the gangsters see you all the way. Quote. Peter turned black and said, I think it's handsome. He immediately remembered the business again and asked anxiously, Drive Yi, do you know where Harry and Mary Jane are? I don't know where they are, but I know that the lizard people's hiding place is in the sewer. I don't know which sewer is it. New York City is too big. Peter, sorry, I can do nothing. Yi Hai apologized, staring at Peter. As the sewer, but thank you, Dr. Yi. I have to go first. Peter ran out of the laboratory quickly, jumping constantly between the buildings, then dropped to the ground, opened an iron box, and jumped in. He ran through the sewers for a whole day, and finally found some traces. He saw several small lizards walking in the sewer. He patiently tracked the small lizards and passed through several sewers. Finally, he found him. The old nests of those lizardmen. There are more than 10 lizards here. They are huge in size and surrounded by a corner. There are bright lights and many advanced instruments. A middle-aged person wearing a white coat is busy on the instrument. The purpose is that this person lacks a right arm. Drive Connor. Was he also plundered by these lizardmen? Peter was slightly surprised, and crawled carefully. To his surprise, in this place, he saw Mary Jane, Harry and Mr. Norman, Harry's father. The father and son, Harry and Norman, seemed to be in a bad condition. They were tied to the 2 test benches, their skin was a little swollen, some places had turned green, their teeth became sharp, but their eyes were bewildered, like it was sleeping, and it seemed like sober. What happened to them? What did these lizard people do to them? Peter was very angry, and the crawling movements became heavy. The keen lizards turned to look at him, the green pupil suddenly enlarged, the roaring sound in his mouth, and then the green figures rushed at Peter. He knows how powerful these lizard people are. 1 lizard man is enough to choke, not to mention more than a dozen lizard people. He is more flexible on the ground, smartly avoiding the attacks of lizard people, and then a spider BGAB shoots out, stuck to Harry's body, pulled but did not pull. Call. With a shout, a thick lizard's tail drew on his body, and Peter flew out, and was hit against a wall. As soon as he fell to the ground, a few lizardmen rushed over and pressed on him. He was trapped firmly. Peter struggled desperately to no avail. These lizard men were quite fierce. The lizard leader Jeff stabbed his thick claws at Peter's head without saying a word. If he was stabbed, Peter would lose his life. Just at this moment of crisis, suddenly the head of the lizard man Jeff was blown away by a punch, and then pressed a few lizard men on Peter's body also flew out. Yi-Hi's figure appeared in front of Peter, and he laughed. Little spider, it looks like your strength can't be compared with these monsters. These things are really terrible, and their strength is really great. Peter stood up with some dizziness and looked at Yi-Hi strangely. Your strength is even stronger than them, you look more like a monster. Yi-Hi smiled slightly and didn't answer, and rushed directly to the scene. The figure flickered continuously, and the lizards fell into the flesh within a few moments. Lizard men are powerful for Peter, but Yi-Hi is not much different from ants. Yi-Hi came to Norman, easily pinched Norman and Harry, and apologized to Norman. Sorry, Mr. Norman, I have only found you now, and your body seems to be abnormal. Quote. Norman stood up, his eyes full of fierce light, and said, these guys have done a lot of experiments on me. I'm really worried that I will become a lizard. Yi-Hi looked at Norman and his sons. The skin of the two men had turned green, and it seemed that the beast genes had been imported. He turned his eyes to Mary Jane in the corner. The girl was intact, still beautiful, and did not seem to be harmed. You are Mary Jane. Don't be afraid, these lizard people have been solved by me. Yi Customs asked, how is your health? Mary Jane's panicked eyes calmed down, her gaze toward Yi-Hi was grateful, and she said, thank you, sir, what's your name? My name is Yi-Hi, and I am a scientist at Osborne Industry. Yi-Hi smiled softly, looking at Mary Jane's eyes full of admiration. Mary nodded a little tiredly. I've heard of you, you're the Dr. Yi in Harry's mouth, and Harry admires you. Is it? Yi-Hi was a little surprised. He looked at Harry next to him. Harry was in a coma. Now the situation is as bad as his father's, and his skin has turned green. Mary saw Harry look like this, her nose was sore, and she shed tears of tears. In the past few days, Dr. Connor has been using their father and son as a test product and injecting them with a lot of medicine. Woo, Dr. Yi, how will altruism become a monster? Quote. Yi-Hi nodded slightly. They are monsters now, but I can cure them. Then Spider-Man Peter came over and said, Drive Yi, let's leave here first, we need to take them to the hospital as soon as possible. Okay. Yi-Hi was rude, and took the fragile Mary into her arms, and she flew up into the air, all of a sudden flying away. When Norman saw Yi-Hi's blatantly frivolous own son's girlfriend, a surge of violence arose in his heart, anxious to incarnate himself, tearing Yi-Hi into pieces. He thought like this, the flame of anger filled the whole body, like an energy flowing through the whole body, and then his body swelled, turned into a monster with green skin and pointed ears, and his hands became god-sharp claws. He looks very much like the goblin in the Western fantasy story, but it is much taller than the goblin in the story. Peter was startled and called, Mr. Norman, this is. Norman gave Peter a fierce look, and suddenly he leapt and chased in the direction of Yi-Hi, and disappeared in a few moments. Oh my God, this is trouble now. Peter was so anxious that he hugged his good friend Harry and chased him. After Peter and others left, the lizard men's rotting meat continued to heal. After about 10 minutes, the lizard men climbed up. The lizard leader Jeff smashed an instrument angrily and shouted, That leaf doctor, I must tear him to pieces and swallow him into my belly. Quote. But he's too strong, we're not his opponent at all, said a lizard man in a daunt. Jeff stagnates slightly, and grabs Dr. Connor next to him roughly and rudely. The lizard covered with green scale armor is full of crickets, and seems to eat Dr. Connor. Dr. Connor shuddered and called, what do you want? Jeff pinched Dr. Connor's rough face, and said roughly, Drive Connor, the most intelligent scientist of the lizard man, I need your potion to make my body stronger. This takes time. I can't do it in the short term. Dr. Connor felt his painful body and gritted his teeth. But I have a way to deal with that Dr. Yi. Jeff's eyes widened suddenly, and he quickly asked, What can I do? The Osborne building has a canary installation. As long as we put in the lizardman potion, it can create a reaction cloud covering more than 10 miles of the area, and then the people in the 10 miles will become our kin. Quote. Dr. Connor said that when he was proud. Jacques laughed and said, Great, this method is good. As long as we have tens of thousands of lizards, we can occupy one city. Our age of lizardmen is about to begin. Quote. Quack. The sewer is full of lizardmen's wild laughter. Mary was held in the arms by Yi-Hai. She didn't feel annoyed in her heart, but instead raised a strange feeling. She saw herself flying in the sky, looked around in surprise, and admired. It's really good to fly in the sky experience. Quote. Yi-Hai smiled. Flying for a long time is actually nothing special, except that the field of vision is wider on the ground, and you can fly, others don't, there will always be a superior satisfaction. Listening to what he said was funny. Mary giggled, and Man Wan's body twisted a bit, fangs full unknowingly pinched on Yi-Hai's arm. Yi-Hai waved a little in his heart and asked, I'll take you to the hospital first. Okay, thank you. Mary's spirit is a bit tired. She has been locked in a basement these days. Although the lizardmen didn't do anything to her, these monsters kept turning around, especially Harry and the Sun Lizardmen's constant torture. Desperate spirits, the spirit has been highly nervous, never sleep well, this will be in the warm embrace of Yi-Hai, eyelids doze constantly, in the end it cannot stand it, and fell asleep directly. Yi-Hai quickly flew over a hospital, flew in through a window, found nurses and doctors, and asked them to take care of Mary. After everything was done, he flew away. You rescued Spider-Man's girlfriend Mary Jane. Gwen was surprised. It didn't take long for me to return to the laboratory before being traced by his girlfriend Gwen. Yi-Hai had no choice but to speak about this action, but the woman started to gossip. Mary doesn't seem to be Peter's girlfriend, he is now Harry's girlfriend. Yi-Hai laughed. Gwen froze slightly and said, I see that Mary and Peter usually have a good relationship. I didn't expect that they were not a couple, but you said it was possible that Mary was Harry's girlfriend. As far as I know, Mary is a girl with a lot of vanity. Her dream is to become a movie star, and a big son next to her will greatly help her in her acting career. Quote. So, this girl has a snack machine. Yi-Hai looked at Gwen slightly in surprise. Gwen, do you know Mary? I know, but the friendship is not very deep, said Gwen. Mary's personality is more cheerful, she likes to make friends, and I'm not the same type of nerd, son. Woohoo. While the two were chatting, a sudden siren sounded from the Osborn building, which indicated that an emergency was happening in Osborn. Yi-Hai quickly turned on the computer and asked, Shuanvi, what happened? Zhan Nu said, Master, Dr. Connor and his 13 lizard men broke into the Osborn building. They are running to Dr. Connor's former laboratory. While she was talking, more than a dozen lizard men were shown on the screen, all looking the same. I don't know how the Zhan Nu distinguished one of them as Dr. Connor. Gwen said in horror. What do they want to do? Maybe you want to grab some experimental data or equipment. Yi-Hai was not very sure of their actions. He did not listen to these guys, he was very angry, and his eyes were murderous. He decided to kill all these troublesome lizards. At this time, the lizard man had entered a laboratory, and one of the lizard men hurried to a room. The lizard man was holding a bottle of green potion in his hand. There is a canary device there. Do they want to radiate the lizard virus? Yi-Hai suddenly had a flash of light and thought of the movie plot. If Dr. Connor had radiated the lizard virus and turned New Yorkers into lizard people, then things would be a big deal. Osborn is probably going to lose a lot, basically ended by the government. So this must never happen. Gwen, let Peter know, he needs his help here. Yi-Hai decided to deal with these lizardmen in secret, obviously it is Spider-Man who solves it. Okay. Gwen called Peter. Peter heard that the lizard man was in trouble at the Osborn building, and he was also amazed by the lizard virus. He immediately ran over, and there was a long distance from Osborn. Distance. Endured with the urge to smash the phone, Peter did his best to use the fastest speed, with the pull of spider silk, to constantly fly through the wall and rush to Osborn. However, he ran a few kilometers away and found a large number of policemen. Several helicopters flew in the sky. These police tried to arrest me, but they were powerless against criminals. Remembering that he had always been chivalrous, but wanted by the New York police, Peter was impatient and couldn't help mocking these policemen. In the buzzing sound of a huge exhaust, a police helicopter appeared within Peter's sight. Hurry up and surrender, or we'll fire. You're surrounded, there's nowhere to run. A warning came from the helicopter, and Peter heard it, the voice of Gwen's father, George Stacy. This old stubborn, why bother me? Peter cursed in his heart. Why do these people keep playing? Is it true that Dr. Yi said, my uniform is too conspicuous? Or should I change the color of the uniform? Black. Quote. There are airplanes in the air, and flying cars in the ground. Along the direction in which you are running, the rooftops on both sides are full of special police, a veritable Tianluo-net. But Peter couldn't care less about it now, and turned a deaf ear to the warnings of the police. Snapped, snapped, snapped. When Peter heard the gunshot, he didn't dare to turn his head, and Yu Guang's eyes noticed that the special policemen on the roof were firing at him with electric paralysis guns. You can't hit me. Peter quickly avoided the fired bullets, and was so proud of it that he was very sad. I saw him flying out of a building along the wall by spider silk. When he leapt in the air, a strong white light suddenly hit him. This was shot by a high-powered searchlight above a police helicopter. Glare. The bright light that radiated instantly made Peter's eyes dark, suddenly lost his sense of direction, and he felt a panic in his heart, and then a strong current surged from the painful location. Boom. Like a bird without wings, Peter was hit by an electric shock paralyzing gun. He fell straight from the air, gravitational acceleration hit a taxi below, and finally rolled off the road. Ha, ha. Peter lying on the road secretly gasping, dizzy, and felt that someone had handcuffed himself, and was pulled up and sat up. Gwen's father, George, appeared, and he said, finally I'm catching you. Hey, you like to wear strange costumes. Hey, what are you talking about? My uniform is very handsome and I often go to the news. Peter didn't seem to be worried about being arrested. He loosened his body, he was torn off the handcuffs in his hand, suddenly jumped up, and ran away again on the wall of the building. His voice was still far away. Hey, don't come to catch me. Those lizards are attacking Osborne. I must go and help. Osborne. George remembered that his daughter wasn't there, and suddenly anxious, he rushed to Osborne with his police. Bump. A large piece of metal from the airlock gate fell to the ground, sparking a few Mars. An indestructible iron gate in the eyes of ordinary people was torn open by a huge green claw, and finally rubbed like a pinch mud into a tatter, and then a giant lizard man drilled in. The canary device appeared in front of him, and Dr. Connor's cheeks smiled, and he shouted at the lizard man behind him, you must block the flying sea of leaves, it only takes 30 seconds. Rest assured, he can't kill us. The lizard leader Jeff laughed. Look, he hasn't come yet. I guess this is going to roll the sheets with the beauty. Dr. Connor activated the canary device, put the green potion in his hand, and the canary device began a countdown. 30, 29, 10, 9. Seeing the time getting shorter and shorter, Dr. Connor's nervous heart began to get excited. It seems that Yi-Hai really won't come to stop. New York City will become our happy home of the lizard people. Boom. At the last moment, two red light burst suddenly, and the canary device suddenly exploded and turned into a pile of scrap iron. Yi-Hai's voice came with a certain mockery. I like to show up at the most important moment. Lizardmen, your use value is gone, you can go to hell. Do not. Seeing that it was about to be successful, it was Yi-Hai who broke the machine and lost all power. Dr. Connor yelled angrily and grinned at Yi-Hai, as if trying to fight Yi-Hai desperately. Seeing these lizard people provoking themselves without knowing it, Yi-Hai shrugged his lips, and red eyes burst into his eyes, and a red laser shot at a lizard man. Puff! The lizard man's huge head exploded, leaving only one neck squirting in blood, and the two large arms were still waving. It seemed to want to find his own head, but he had a strong recovery ability. It was also impossible to recover the exploded head. At the same time when the blood was sprayed, the huge body fell to the ground, and the whole house shook suddenly. The other lizard men gazed at the headless corpse and waited for a long time before seeing it come to life, and their hearts were beating suddenly. They finally realized that the people in front of them could kill them. Today, you will all die here, the body will be exposed to the world. Yi-Hai said slowly, and then began a big killing. A laser beam shot out from his eyes, the heads of the lizard people burst open, falling down a dead body. Bump! When Dr. Connor and the lizard leader Jeff couldn't see right, they smashed open the glass window and fell down violently. They fell directly to the ground from more than 10 layers. The huge weight was due to gravity. Two large pits smashed on the ground, and there was a vibration on the ground. The two lizard men felt that their bones were broken in many places, and their strong recovery ability could not allow them to recover in a short time. However, the enemy now has to endure the pain and crawl out of the big pit and climb out. Run away. The crowd outside saw the two giant monsters that suddenly appeared, and ran away in panic, but there were still a few daring people who photographed the two lizard men with their mobile phones. Yi-Hai was suspended in midair, and was not in a hurry to resolve the two monsters. He was hidden inside the Osborne building, watching underneath. He needs these two lizard men to riot and let more people know about the two lizard monsters. In this way, it is impossible for the government to hide it. The credibility of Osborne's business will be greatly affected. Woohoo! More than a dozen police cars screamed, and there were police helicopters in the sky. Someone shouted to the two lizard men below. Two monsters. Lizard men, please stop the riot and hurry to squat down to accept surrender. Listening to this voice was Gwen's father, George. Yi-Hai evoked a smile, slowly flying over. He needs to protect this future old man. The two lizard men below did not pay any attention to these policemen, and rushed forward with their thick skin and fleshy skin. The policemen were taken aback. Police Chief George immediately ordered the fire. The crackling gunfire sounded and the bullets were released on the two lizard men. There were wounds on the lizard men. The huge pain inspired their beastly nature. They braved the rain of gunfire and rushed into the police crowd. The giant claws waved. At the moment, several police officers were torn and the police car was turned into a pile of waste, iron. So powerful beast. The policemen were frightened and backed away, breaking a defensive circle. Two lizard men ran out of the gap and rushed into the crowd watching. In the crowd screaming, flesh flew and blood rained. Smelly beast. George yelled on the helicopter, his eyes flushed, and he could not wait to jump off the helicopter and the two beasts desperately. Secretary, where did these two things come out? They seem to have been seriously injured, and they seem scared. They seem to want to hide. A policeman had keen eyes and discovered the problems with the two monsters. George frowned, and nodded slightly. You're right, these two beasts seem to be fleeing. They can get there with such a big size. Don't they want to hide in the sewer? He looked at the Osborne building behind him, and gritted his teeth. It's Osborne again. These two monsters must be related to Osborne, maybe they developed them. George's mood towards Osborne is more complicated, because his daughter and future son-in-law Yi-Hai work here, and Yi-Hai's position is not low. He does not want the two monsters to be related to Yi-Hai. You need to find a way to get rid of these two monsters, George shouted. Hurry up with high-energy rifles and hit their heads. But, Secretary, this is a downtown area. There are too many people and you may accidentally hurt innocent people. I can't control that much. If they let it go like this, I'm afraid more people will die. Yi-Hai saw a lot of people dead, and the two lizard men were almost noisy, so they suddenly rushed down from the sky, and grasped the two lizard men with two hands like an eagle catching a chick. Flying into the sky again. Who is that person? That man seems to be a man, and he can fly. Will he be a doctor of science? When everyone was puzzled, two huge figures suddenly fell from the sky. With a sound, a loud noise was heard on the ground, blood splattered, and there was a sickening blood smell all around. The people on the ground were frightened, their eyes couldn't help but gathered in the past, and then a shocked look appeared on their faces. I saw two headless lizard men lying on the empty road. They could not die anymore. Died. After a moment of silent horror, the crowd quickly made a noise, and then a sound of snapping photos took the scene in front of them. Just so dead. George stared at the two corpses below. The flying man could easily kill the lizard man. It can be seen that that person's lethality was very large. Such a person hiding in New York would be a huge hidden danger, then that the hidden danger of Spider-Man is even greater. Thinking of this, George couldn't help worrying. The lizard men attacked the Osborne industry. The truth is to make lizard men. The New York Times. The lizard men are killing people on the street. It's terrible. Osborne Industry must be responsible for this. The doctor of science once again killed the lizard men. Where did these lizard men emerge? Could it be a biochemical weapon for the Osborne Industry? Los Angeles Times. Where did the lizards come from? Alien creatures? Obviously not possible. Osborne Enterprises give us a reason. Early the next morning, the story of the lizardmen spread throughout the United States and even the world through the news. Osborn has more and more negative news and rumors. Many people believe that the lizardmen are Osborn's creations. They must responsible for the street tragedy. Soon it was only one day. Osborn Industries' stock plummeted, and continued to fall. Osborn Industries depreciated a lot. Osborn Industries management immediately gave Guangdong first aid, but after more than 10 days of hard work, nothing worked. Osborn's stock price still fell to the bottom, and those shareholders almost jumped off the building with excitement. At this time, Yi Haipai sent a request to buy Osborn shares, and after discussing with Osborn shareholders felt that Osborn was basically weak, and they decided to replace Osborn. Sell it. On this day, Osborn held a shareholder meeting, and Osmond's president, Norman Osborn, finally came forward. He looked no different from ordinary people and did not have the characteristics of a wild animal. Norman sat in the chief position, glanced at the shareholders on both sides, and then said in a deep voice, "Sorry, I have been feeling unwell recently. I haven't appeared in the office to deal with such a thing. However, we will Spoon's administrative department did a good job. After more than 10 days of hard work, our crisis in Osborn has been lifted. In a few days, we can return to the track again, and still be the former Osborn. The top companies in the biological industry." Quote. When Norman saw all sensible people looking at him with a blank expression, he paused and said, "Well, the stock market has started to pick up in the past few days, which can show that Osborn can recover soon." Quote. "That's fine, Mr. Norman, so we're going to sell the company?" said a white-haired old man suddenly opposite him. "What?" Norman thought he had heard wrong, and asked quickly, "What, sell? Did you just say sell?" The old white-haired man took the coffee cup and took a sip, saying, "The other party's price is good, at least when we were in trouble, Osborn." "Are you crazy?" Norman wondered. "Now the stock market is starting to pick up. We're rich in Osborn." "Enough, Norman." The old white-haired man interrupted him rudely, staring at Norman with an angry expression. "Look, what have you done over the years? You took everyone's money for your own selfish desires. What special spiders to study, and the lizard man, do think we didn't know that the troubled lizard man was actually made by you, and continue to let you do these lawless things. Sooner or later, you will cause our sensible people to go to prison." Quote. "Yes, Norman, we can't follow you anymore. You actually hide that we have made a terrible beast like the lizard man. It is terrible. Who knows if you will make a more terrible monster in the future. The spiders you have been doing for so many years have done nothing. We, Osborn Industries, have been deformed under your leadership." The directors couldn't help but condemn Norman. "Why don't you tell me this?" Norman glared at the directors. "Buyers don't want to cause a fight between senior management, they don't want to mess up Osborn, because they bought Osborn for business," the white-haired old man said slowly, mockingly. Norman gritted his teeth, and a violent surge in his heart rose, almost couldn't help rushing to tear the old man apart. At this time a bald man replied, "If you are here, the transaction cannot be established, and the board will sign your resignation within 30 days. For a while, Norman's head was spinning, resisting the hatred, stood up and begged, "You can't do this. This company was founded by my own hands, you can't do it." Seeing these sensible people were expressionless, and even embarrassed, Norman was instantly filled with anger and shouted, "Do you know how much I sacrificed for the Osborn industry? When my wife died, I was not there. She listened to her last words by her bed. At this time I was still working in the office. Yes, I have been working. I have totally ignored my children for so many years, and I have had a handful of meals with Harry. So much for this company, now you guys told me to sell it. Why are you?" Quote. The bald man apologized. "Sorry, Norman, this is a decision of the board of directors, we have all agreed. We will announce after the World Carnival. I'm sorry, Norman." Norman shook his body and almost did not faint to the ground. He knew that it could not be recovered. This was a decision of the board. Although he was the president, he did not occupy as many shares as these people combined. His right to speak was not yet theirs. Again, the board of directors unanimously approved that he, the founder of Osborn, could do nothing. He really wanted to cry. The white-haired old man sneered, "You're out, Norman. You're out, Norman. You're out, Norman." This sentence kept echoing in Norman's mind, full of mockery and scorn. The violence in Norman's heart could not be restrained, and the beast in his body seemed to be out of trouble. For a moment, the weak Norman swept away, and the green light flashed in his eyes. He silently said the corner of his mouth and said, "Is it World Carnival? Fine, I will make you pay." Ding. The quality inspection system is being activated. The vampire gene elimination agent has a compliance rate of 96.9% and can be used. Ding. The successful development of a vampire gene elimination agent has rewarded the host with 15,000 scientific values. Yi-Hai held a bottle of red potion in his hand, and after hearing the sound of the system, he asked, "System, how much scientific value do I have now?" The host now has 61,590 scientific points. The system said, "It's more than 60,000 points. I remember that if the naughty gene fusion was successful, the system would reward 50,000 scientific values. In that case, I would have more than 100,000 scientific values, which would solidify the 4th level brain domain." Yi-Hai carefully weighed it in his heart and felt that if he turned on the 4th level brain domain, he should be able to solve the naughty problem within 10 days. The 4th level brain domain was opened at 1,000 scientific values per day, and 10 days of research was consumed. With 10,000 scientific values, after getting 50,000 scientific values, there are more than 100,000 scientific values left. If you calculate this, you can just solidify the 4th level brain domain. After thinking in his mind, Yi-Hai said in his heart, "System, open the 4th level brain domain." Yes. Ding. The host turns on the 4th level brain domain, which opens 40% of the brain domain and consumes 1,000 scientific values. For a moment, 40% of Yi-Hai's brain domain was turned on. The scene in front of eyes 490 suddenly became bright and clear. His brain moved quickly, and Yi-Hai couldn't control his thinking because it was too fast, just like driving. You must get on the car often to be proficient in controlling the car. Because the scientific value of the 4th level brain domain consumption is very large, Yi-Hai usually opens the 3rd level brain domain, and there are only a handful of open 4th level brain domains. Every time he opens it, he feels a bit out of control of his own thinking. Thinking often runs off track and into other lessons. In this state, Yi-Hai must carefully control his own thinking. He turned on the data of small naughty genes in the laboratory and quickly entered the research. Genetic engineering formulas jumped in his mind one by one, seemingly messy formulas and data he can always understand at a glance, find out the connections, and then quickly form a new formula. This process is very fast and is almost completed subconsciously. This effect is indeed much faster and smarter than the 3rd grade brain domain. Yi-Hai spent 8 days in this state, and finally got the perfect equation, and it took another day to make the medicine. Ding. The perfection of predatory gene fusion ordinary cells is 99%, it is recommended for host use. Ding. The host has completed the perfect fusion experiment of predatory gene fusion with ordinary cells and rewarded 50,000 scientific values. Host, your scientific value is 102,590 scientific value. May I ask if the host has solidified the 4th level brain domain? Cure the 4th level brain domain. Yi-Hai didn't hesitate. Yes. Ding. The host solidifies the 4th level brain. The host successfully cured the 4th level brain domain, consuming 100,000 scientific values, and the remaining 2,590 scientific values. In the normal state of the host, 40% of the brain domain will be turned on, and no scientific value will be consumed. The process of solidifying the 4th level brain domain is very simple. Yi-Hai felt that the opening of his brain domain was fixed in an instant, and other abilities could not plunder his current state. Apart from this feeling, there is no other special feeling, because he originally opened the 4th level brain domain. Fortunately, after 9 days of 4-level brain domain operation, I have been able to master this level of thinking operation, otherwise I really can't control this fast thinking ability. Yi-Hai thought for a while and said, "Xuanvi, let Xiao Nadi come and say that I have been able to modify her ability." "Okay, master." Soon the Nadi ran over. Her expression was a little excited, and her face was flushed. This was when she heard that Yi-Hai could solve her problem, and her heart was excited. Yi-Hai stopped the naughty thin waist and laughed. little beauty, I have solved your genetic problem, and I have a way to modify your ability. Xiao Nadi felt the action of that strange hand. Xiao blushed even more, and she asked nervously, can you stop me from plundering the ability of others? Yi Hai was slightly surprised. Why eliminate your ability? Don't you like your current ability? Of course I don't like it, Xiao Nadi said in distress. Because of my ability, my classmates dare not touch me, and none of my friends. Don't you still have me? Yi Hai deliberately said, don't you treat me as a friend? Yi, of course you are my friend, Xiao said nervously, you are my best friend. How good is it to be your boyfriend? Yi Hai's evil charm looked at Xiao Nadi, his face became even more red, his nervous hands were at a loss, his hands were all sweaty, and his heart kept jumping. Suddenly, Nadi raised her head, kissed Yi Haijin's face bravely, and said, of course, Yi, as long as you don't hate me stupid, I am willing to be one of your girlfriends. One of the girlfriends. Yi Hai was a little funny. It seemed that this shy and timid girl was also deliberate. She was trying to test her weight in Yi Hai's heart. But this kind of problem can't help him. He smiled slightly, grabbed her soft hands, and said, little Nadi, we are born to pair, do you know? Little mischievous eyes lit up, and his breathing was a little bit rushed, really? You don't fool me. You see our ability. Yi Hai still has a bright smile on his face. He slowly said, your ability can plunder the ability of others. Once you contact others, others will lose their ability or even life, so everyone is afraid you, far away from you, only I am not afraid of your ability, because my ability is very similar to you, and can be immune to your plunder. Look, are we two a destined pair? Quote. In this respect, the Nadi really did not think about it. When she heard Yi Hai's words, she burst into tears. She felt that she was not alone in this world. At least one person was not afraid of her and was willing to be with her. Because he said to her, we are born to be. Yi Haisheng, she wiped the tears on her face with her hands, and she didn't feel any discomfort. Sure enough, as he said, the two of them were a natural pair. Yi Hai smiled. After studying these days, I found that your genes are actually capable of plundering the ability of others, just because your cells are too weak to bear the ability of others. Once fully absorbed, your body cells will collapse, so in order to protect your safety, every time you absorb the ability of others, it will be immediately eliminated. This is why you have no ability to leave the other person after you stop contacting people. The reason. Yi Hai said very simply, but Xiao Nadi was ignorant. She didn't understand Yi Hai's words well. She hesitated, you mean that I could save the ability of others, but my body is too poor, the body protects itself and eliminates these abilities. Quote. Yes, that's it. Yi Hai laughed. If you want to get the ability of others forever, you must strengthen your physical fitness. How to strengthen? Is it to exercise? Xiao Nadi asked. Exercising is a method, but the main thing is to strengthen your cells genetically, but unfortunately, my research on strengthening cells is still in its initial stage. There is nothing I can do to strengthen your body cells. Yi Hai apologized. Look to her. Xiao Nadi saw that he was so serious about his own affairs, and was immediately moved by a mess, and said quickly, I have no interest in the ability to absorb others, Yi, you don't need to worry about this. Yi Hai pinched her tender face and said, it's not difficult for me, it's just how much time it takes, and studying cell strengthening has a great effect on myself. Well, not to mention this, I asked you to add a switch to your body so that your ability can be turned on as you wish. Really, that's great. Little Nadi kissed Yi Hai's face in excitement. She and Yi Hai were together, and she would become bold and happy without realizing it. She liked this feeling very much, and liked to stick to Yi Hai, but Yi Hai she's always busy. She usually calls her to study her body and talk to her by the way, but she's very satisfied. Little Nadi, your classmates will not be afraid of you in the future, and you can make good friends. Yi Hai laughed. Xiao Nadi has a smile on her face, but a bitter smile in her heart, so that she can control her ability freely. It may not make those classmates not afraid of her. In order not to cause trouble, she wraps herself tightly. Under the strict protection, I will definitely not meet others, but those classmates are still unwilling to get along with her, and there is still alert in her eyes. Obviously, what they were afraid of was her ability, whether she could control it freely or not. Therefore, she is still a lonely girl, and Yi Hai's efforts are in vain. She really wanted Yi-hai to help her with this ability, but she was afraid that she would lose Yi-hai's only friend. She didn't say anything. Yi-hai still moves as fast as before. After banging on the computer for more than 10 minutes, he started to let Zhan Nu create potions. Soon, a green potion appeared on Yi-hai. He shook the potion in his hand and laughed. Look, your problem is not difficult for me. As long as you inject this potion, you can control your ability freely. Quote. Thank you, Yi. Little Naughty still smiled like a flower, watching Yi-hai carefully inject her with medicament. After a few minutes, her brain seemed to emit a silk thread, controlling the movement of every cell in the body. She could follow her own mind to regulate your ability. Well, you have completed the transformation. Yi-hai smiled. We have to find someone to do experiments. Yi-hai pulled out of the lab with a Little Naughty, and just happened to meet Wolverine in a hurry on the street. He grabbed Wolverine and said, Logan, what do you do in a hurry? Wolverine said with a murderous face, a friend of mine has disappeared in Afghanistan. It is said that it was hijacked by Afghan terrorists. I have to go to Afghanistan to take him out. Wolverine has lived for hundreds of years and has a footprint all over the world. There are many enemies and many friends on the planet. Afghanistan, why do those terrorists catch your friends? Yi-hai flashed in his mind and asked, is he an expert in weapon manufacturing? No, he is a surgeon. What is his name? Ethan. Ethan. Yi-hai, stunned slightly, hurried back to the laboratory, and said to the computer, Shuanvi, look for where Stark Group President Tony Stark is now. Yes. Zhan Nu quickly answered his question. Master, Tony Stark has now taken his private jet to Afghanistan, and online news sources said he will sell his newly invented new weapons to the US military in Afghanistan. Already gone to Afghanistan. Yi-hai smiled slightly. It seems that the story of Iron Man is about to happen. Should I rescue this Tony? However, after thinking about it for a while, he still gave up this plan. This is the tribulation that the hero must go through. Without this hijack, there would be no Iron Man in the future. Besides, Tony Stark doesn't have much value now. Let's talk about money. He now has no less money than Tony. When it comes to Tony's technology, that tattered steel battle suit, Yi-hai can easily make it. Thinking of the steel suit, Yi-hai suddenly showed an unhappy smile. If I made the steel suit in advance, what would Tony look like? Carnival is a traditional festival in Europe. The predecessor of the carnival is the English transliteration of the carnival in Europe and the United States, which is equivalent to the temple fair in China. It originated in ancient Egypt and later became a celebration of the ancient Roman sacred god festival. Over the years, the carnival has gradually changed from a traditional festival to today's public entertainment event, including large-scale amusement facilities, supplemented by various cultural and artistic activities. There are a variety of carnivals around the world, and it has become a symbol of many cities. On this day, the World Carnival has begun. The whole New York City is in a carnival, slogans are everywhere, and all kinds of strange things are flying in the sky. Many people wear weird clothes and walk on the street. On this day, the Osborne Industrial Group has a collective holiday, and employees gather under the Osborne building to carnival. There are free food to enjoy, and there are happy entertainment activities in. What particularly pleases young people is that Osborne's high-level shots were so generous this time, even many famous singers were invited to join the show. Because of this, there are many young people gathered here under the Osborne building, and the number is very large, forming a turbulent crowd. Fortunately, Osborne security has long been prepared to maintain order well, and there is no chaotic scene. Yi-hai and Gwen stood on the 10-story balcony of the Osborne building, where most of Osborne's directors are gathered. They are very kind to Yi-hai. They actually knew about this Osborne purchase. The buyer behind is the young man in front of him, and it is estimated that only that Norman is still in the dark. Welcome to the World Carnival, please applaud Messi Gray. The host on the stage just finished the introduction, and the crowd below burst into thunderous applause and shouts. They were very enthusiastic and excited. A beautiful curly black woman walked up to the stage and sang a song while holding a microphone while jumping. Her voice was sweet and her figure was beautiful. Yi-hai took a look at the following performance and thought, Messi Gray. There is even this person in this world. The appearance of the two people is not much different. Do people in the two worlds overlap? Yi-hai didn't pay much attention to the entertainment in this world before, and this meeting got the heart, so he took out his mobile phone and looked at the stars of this world. There are really a lot of people among Hollywood stars, such as Anne Heather Vicky, Leonardo DiCaprio, and more. And the appearance of people in the two worlds seemed similar. This surprised Yi-hai. However, he didn't know the American stars well. He didn't know how many stars overlapped, so he connected the internet to China and suddenly opened his mouth. He actually saw many real stars, such as Lu Feifei and Yang Ying, Andy Lau and more. Looking at the one-on-one photos, Yi-hai couldn't help but surging imagination. In the real world, he was so different from these female stars, but in this Marvel world, he is a godlike figure. Now, should these gorgeous beauties be brought in? It's okay not to bring in, just to get a little bit sloppy, it's also a good choice. Of course, these are just his temporary thoughts. It will be hard to say whether he will put them into action, because he is very satisfied with his girlfriend now, and has no plans to derail at present. However, no man does not spend his heart, especially the successful men who are rich. It is difficult to say whether Yi-hai will embark on hunting. At this time, the two young men and women went to the balcony, and when they saw Yi-hai nodded slightly to him. Both of them knew each other naturally, Harry and Mary Jane. They were close to the fence, and Harry looked at Mary's figure, frowning slightly. Mary, this dress you wear today should be a Chinese cheongsam. Yes, does it look good? Mary asked slightly, twisting her body. Not bad, Harry said, touching his chin. But it's not in line with the current atmosphere. You should wear a black dress, so respect the tradition. No, Harry. Mary glanced at Yi-hai and said, I also respect the tradition, but it's Chinese tradition, you know. When Chinese traditional festivals, they like to wear red like me the dress, is this cheongsam, they feel so happy. Quote. Oh, when did you start studying Chinese tradition? Harry looked at her strangely. Don't you disdain this country before? Mary looked again at Yi-hai, not far away, and said absently, I think I was too naive before. As an ancient civilization, China is definitely a great capital. I think my dress is very beautiful. She was perfunctory casually, and there was some impatience in the center. She wanted to walk to Yi-hai and talk to him a few times, and then the two of them would get familiar with each other and see if there was any chance for interaction. As for Holly, when she remembered how Harry turned into a green skin monster in that sewer, she couldn't help but goosebumps and wanted to stay away from him. Yes, you are beautiful. Harry looked at Mary May, beautiful and charming, so he couldn't help but put his face over to kiss her. Mary's heart was cold for a while, and the hairs of her whole body stood up instantly. She pushed away quickly and hid. Harry was disappointed and said, I'll get a glass of wine in the room. He walked towards the back room, and bumped into a bald man in a wheelchair. He bent down and said, Mr. Fei, hello. Hello, Harry. The bald man responded politely. Mr. Fei, have you seen my father? Harry asked. Oh, the bald man froze slightly, his eyes flashing unnaturally, and slowly said, he may not come today. Suddenly, an extremely harsh sound came from the air, and everyone closed their ears with their hands and stared blankly into the sky. What it is? Many people saw a black smoke across the sky in the distance and gradually flew in, only to find that a green-skinned monster was standing on a flying machine, and was flying fast here. That's Goblin. That's Goblin. Some people recognized the image of the monster and applauded when they saw that the monster could control the aircraft with ease. They think that this Goblin was made up and is a special program of Osborn. I couldn't help sighing. Osborn is really rich and wealthy, so many stars have asked for help, and there is still such a high-tech thing. Gwen giggled. This Goblin is pretty like a mutant. No, it's a product of genetic technology, something similar to a lizard. Yi-hai stared at the green-skinned monster with ease, and he could see at a glance that this guy was the Norman Osborn. He even ran to this place to make trouble. With me, you can successfully kill these directors. Quack. Suddenly there was a rattling grin in the green-skinned monster's mouth. He flew around the Osborn building a few times, staring fiercely at the directors of Osborn. At this time, these people also noticed something wrong and felt the green-skinned monster is not good. Suddenly the green-skinned monster waved his right hand, a pumpkin bomb flew out, landed under the roof. Yi-hai saw it, Neonly immediately probed out, and the pumpkin bomb flew back again in the same way. The green-skinned monster's pupils shrank sharply, and he quickly controlled the aircraft under his feet to hide. Boom! There was a loud noise, the pumpkin bomb exploded, the flames overflowed, and a strong shock wave burst out, and the glass windows of the Osborne building shattered. What? The change was too sudden and terrible. The crowd at the scene screamed in horror and began to flee. The scene was chaotic. See, Mao, Xian, Wen, and Net. The police rushed to ask for support, but they were helpless against the monster in the sky. The green-skinned monster did not understand why the pumpkin bombs flew back, but it did not prevent him from continuing to throw the pumpkin bombs. This time he flew directly over the balcony, and 3 pumpkin bombs were thrown out at once. Watching 3 round bombs fall from the sky, the crowd on the balcony was left in despair. Seeing the chaos below, Yi-Hai was a bit annoyed. This time, he no longer kept his hand and waved his hand directly. The 3 pumpkin bombs flew back quickly and hit the green-skinned monster. Boom! The green-skinned monster screamed, his left leg and right arm were blown off, his flesh was blurred, his body fell from the air, and he fell into the chaotic crowd. The ground police met and rushed over, but did not see the green-skinned monster, but a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had his left leg and right arm broken, and the blood was raging. The sight was very miserable. He saw the police come over and shouted, "Mr. Police, send me to the hospital. It's up." Quote. The policeman was a little puzzled, and asked, "Sir, where did the fallen greenskin monster go?" The middle-aged man shook his head blankly and said, "I don't know, what green monster, I didn't see it." The policeman frowned, looking at the middle-aged man with a suspicious look, because the flying machine was right next to the man, and suddenly a young man ran over and called, "I just saw the skin monster fell down, and then quickly became this man. He is the green skin monster. Police, don't you believe it? I have recorded the scene just now with my mobile phone." Quote. The young man shook his cell phone smugly. The middle-aged man was taken aback and hurriedly pushed away the police around him. He just ran a few steps and fell to the ground. His injuries were too serious. The police took out the guns in their hands, pointed at the middle-aged man, and yelled, "Don't move, otherwise we'll shoot." The middle-aged man stopped struggling. He begged, "You must be mistaken. I'm the president of Osborne Industry. How could this be done? Are you Norman Osborne?" The policeman was taken aback and looked carefully at the blood-stained face of the middle-aged man. It was really Norman Osborne. Norman Osborne was a big man after all, and the police did not dare to offend easily, so he called an ambulance and took him to the hospital. It didn't take long for the directors of Osborne to know that these people have scolded Norman for being a lunatic, and it is just heartbroken. They are no different from terrorists and they should keep a distance from such people. Osborne Industry is the right choice. Look at Norman's actions today. He is lawless. If he continues to follow him, who knows what will happen to this person. On the contrary, the farce further strengthened the determination of these sensible people to sell Osborne. People who had some sympathy and guilt for Norman did not have a slight favor for Norman. Although some people made trouble this time, fortunately, no casualties were caused, and Osborne's transfer ceremony was still held. In a huge hall in Osborne, many reporters and guests gathered. Yi-Hai stood at the front desk, listening to the host's speech. The host simply told the identity of the purchaser, that it was Yi-Hai Network Group and the president was Yi-Hai. Now the United States and even the world has been known for Yi-Hai Network Group for a long time. It is already known to passers-by. Its president, Yi-Hai, has been named the fastest growing person in the human world because he is not and earn hundreds of billions of dollars in a month's time. This rate of earning money is like a myth. I don't know how many people make jealousy jealous. However, Yi-Hai is relatively low-key and hardly appears in public. However, the vast media of Shintong still got his picture, so the reporters here basically know Yi-Hai, who is standing in the foreground, and they have thrown their cameras at the crowd to install low-key leaf C. At this time, the host said, "Our chairman, Mr. Yi, probably everyone hears the most about his myths on cybersecurity, but few people know that he is actually a biological scientist. He is based in Osborne. He is the chief scientist. This time he took over Osborne and officially announced that he would rename Osborne Industry to Yi-Hai Bio Industry and launch a new product that has always been a potion that slows down aging." During the moderator's speech, a tall Chinese woman came up in a cheongsam, holding a plate in her hand and a white potion on it. The moderator took the white medicament in his hand and introduced, "This medicament is called Yi Hai Ching Kun medicament. The method of use is via intravascular injection. After the injection, the medicament will react within 2 minutes, which will increase the vitality of the human cells and eliminate the cells the impurities in it can delay the aging. Generally, if you inject this medicine every day, the appearance of the 50 to 60-year-olds looks the same as that of the 30-year-olds. There is no difference between a guy and a middle-aged man in his 40s and 50s. The crowd suddenly heard the introduction of the host, and they all showed an unbelievable look. They all expressed that they did not believe the host's words, and felt that he was out of favor. True and false, when has our human genetic technology advanced to this extent? I think Yihai Group has developed a potion, but it definitely does not have such a strong function. They must be popular and earn fame. It's a joke, I listen to this guy's bragging, I'm about to laugh out big teeth. Ha ha, so funny. Scammers, Osborne Industries do not have a good thing. Facing the doubts of the crowd, the host did not panic, he glanced slightly at the audience, and smiled, I know you don't believe it, but we can use facts to convince you. He patted his palm. Then 3 elderly people stepped onto the high platform. The 3 were 2 men and 1 woman, and 1 man and 1 woman were about 50 or 60 years old. The other man was urging old, wrinkled, and barely walked. He moved. He was pushed up in a wheelchair. He was listless in the wheelchair. He pulled his eyelids and seemed to fall asleep. The host laughed. I just said that our medicine can enhance the vitality of human cells. We will now inject these 3 brave ladies and gentlemen. I will first explain that they are all volunteers and you will witness a miracle moment. Quote. The host first came to the old woman and said with a smile, Madam, can you introduce yourself first? Okay, said the old woman slowly. My name is Michelle Gus, I live in New York City's Jeonjo home, and once was a primary school music teacher. I retired 2 years ago. There is usually nothing, a little bit. Leisurely, my hobby is singing. If Osborne this time, oh sorry, Yihai Biological Company can restore my youth, I will go to a singing competition, I don't think my singing will be better than those little girls' difference. Yes, I believe that. The host subtly interrupted the old woman's continuous flow. Ms. Gus, believe us, we will let you realize your dream. Ms. Gus, aren't you afraid that the experiment will fail? If there are any side effects, what to do if you become a monster, such as those lizard men, green-skinned monsters or something? One remembers to stand up and say, so straightforward and clear, it's clearly troublesome. Everyone here knows that Osborne Industry, the predecessor of Yihai Biological Company, has rumors of making lizardmen and green-skin monsters. The host loosely laughed and said, Sir, don't you know that the U.S. Pharmacy Inspection Agency stipulates that every pharmaceutical product that needs to be marketed requires a large number of human trials. We know all kinds of effects and side effects. Chew, we are now asking 3 elderly people here to show our products to audiences all over the world. Quote. The old woman laughed. Yes, I just knew this, so rest assured to restore my youth. Ha ha, everyone laughed at what she said was interesting, and the photographers shot the scene. Okay, Ms. Gus, the host laughed. Your wish will come true soon. In the expectation of everyone, he waved his hand, and then a few doctors and nurses in white coats came up. They went to Ms. Gus, and then gave an injection. As the injection was completed, everyone widened their eyes and stared at Ms. Gus to see if her body would really turn into a young woman. Ms. Gus was 60 years old. In the words of the host, she could recover to about 30 years old. This young woman is still the most beautiful moment for a woman. Please wait patiently for 2 minutes, and then a miracle appears. The host is still active. The 2 minutes were short and passed quickly, and then Ms. Gus felt that the body started to feel hot and itchy all over, as if there were many small bugs biting her skin, especially her face was very itchy, and she couldn't help itching on the face, but touched layers of old skin on the face. Quote. This is. Looking at the old skin on her hand, Ms. Gus was stunned, and then she found everyone watching her in shock. She asked in confusion, what's wrong? Someone admired. It's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. Everyone was amazed, the sound of the camera sounded, and the reporters were completely crazy. Oh my God, this is a miracle, it is a miracle. Yes, she actually turned into a young woman. Oh my God, is this true? Wouldn't it be this woman who just wore makeup? It is impossible to make up. Yehai Biological is a big company with hundreds of billions of dollars. Their first product will not be fake, which will break their signature. Yes, this is absolutely true. This is the greatest invention of the 21st world. The dream of immortality is about to be realized. Seeing the horror of the crowd, Ms. Gus's excited face was hung. At this moment, a nurse handed over a mirror. Inside the mirror, good job, was a young and beautiful girl, mature Wu Mei, beautiful, beautiful, it was exactly what she looked like when she was young. What? Ms. Gus screamed in excitement, and she was so emotional that she almost passed out. Because Ms. Gus was so excited that she was taken down by doctors and nurses, the doctors needed to further examine her body to see if there was any physical condition. Then the host started to introduce the man in his 50s and 60s. After that, the man also injected the medicament and became a young man in his 20s. He was very excited to see his young appearance, and I improvised a dance on the high stage, and finally said that he can safely go after the little girl next door, and he has coveted for many years. Everyone laughed. In the loud applause of everyone, he stepped down from the stage and left the venue. When the crowds quieted down, the host said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you do see youthful responses, but we have to regret to tell you that after injection of the medicament, only the body cells became active, which inspired your body cells. Potential, when your body's potential is exhausted, you will still grow old, and then our potion of youth will have no effect." Quote. Everyone was slightly surprised, but there was not much loss. They all knew that things had limits. To proceed slowly, it was impossible to step into the sky. "So, sir, how much potential does this medicine have?" a reporter asked. The host laughed. "To be honest, I don't understand the terminology. I can only briefly describe it. Generally speaking, the lifespan of human beings is about 150 years, but few people in history can reach this age. Even in the modern medical industry, the average life expectancy is still about 80 years old. Why do we not enjoy nearly half the life expectancy? Because the environment in which we live is full of chronic poisons, such as food, air, radiation, etc. Wait, they are fading our body and our cells all the time. Our medicine is to rejuvenate the debilitated cells, stimulate their potential, become pollution-free cells, and let people reach the limit of life." Quote. Oh my God, in other words, everyone can live to 150 years. This is the conclusion of our theoretical research, which has not been confirmed experimentally, but to make everyone more convinced, we invited the old gentleman. The host pointed to the old man next to him. His name is Matt. Wilder is a long-lived old man. He is now 120 years old and is about to enter the ultimate lifespan of 150 years. However, his body is polluted by the environment and it is impossible to live to that age. Today, we will inject him with this potion of life to stimulate his potential and let him live to about 150 years of age. Quote. As he finished speaking, the doctor next to the old man picked up a thin arm of the old man and patted it hard. After finding the blood vessels, he injected the medicine into it. In the process, the old man still looked like he was dying, or he looked like he was drowsing his eyelids. Everyone didn't bother him, they all looked at him quietly. It was still about 2 minutes. The old man suddenly felt a little spirit. He opened his eyes and looked around in doubt, as if he had woke up from a dream. He smiled slightly and said, "It's so itchy, but it feels wonderful, I feel the vitality of my body again, and I can stand up again." Then, "Old gentleman, please stand up." The host smiled. "Okay, no problem." He said so, then supported the wheelchair with both hands, stood up carefully, and slowly walked up on the high platform. His movements changed from mechanical to proficient, and then he walked with the walking steps like an ordinary old man. He waved at the crowd below. Everyone burst into applause, all excited. "Please go slowly, don't get too excited. Although the potion has stimulated your potential, you are still very old." The host laughed. The old man smiled slightly and said, "I, BGDJ, don't care how long I can live. I care about my geriatric disease. At my age, my geriatric disease is ridiculous and I have almost no thinking ability. But I can't sleep comfortably. I always feel drowsy. I can't move. I can't even eat myself. This kind of life is not as good as death. But now it different and my body is not. Replying to youth, but those senile diseases are gone, I can eat myself, dress myself, go to the toilet myself, and chat with friends. If I can, I would like to ask a lady to watch a movie. I think this world is again welcome to me, it's still so beautiful. Quote. Papa. The crowd burst into applause, the old man smiled mildly, and then stepped down with the doctors and nurses. After the old man left, the reporters started asking questions madly, and the host answered them one by one. Sir, when does your company start selling youth pills? About 5 days later. Listing in North America first. We have a complete sales channel, which is not difficult for us. But at the beginning, there will be only a small number of listings to see the market effect. I think they will be crazy. Those old people will be crazy. Who doesn't want to restore youth? About how much is it for? A potion is $1,000. Do you need an injection every day? You need to inject a medicament every day to maintain the vitality of the cells and to continuously detoxify. This price is so expensive. One medicine per day, that is, it costs $1,000 a day, 1 month is $30,000, and 1 year is more than $360,000. God, I want to buy it for my mother. It seems that I don't have the opportunity to be filial. Quote. The moderator smiled slightly. Don't worry, lad, you will have the opportunity to be filial. Our youth potion will be continuously improved, and costs and processes will be continuously reduced. We predict that in the next 10 years, a potion can reduce to $100. Quote. This is a miracle of life. Yihai Biological Company has freed us from the shackles of life that God gave us, the New York Times. God, I can guarantee that this is true, absolutely true. I have witnessed 3 old people become young people. They are active and look young, especially the lady. She returned to the pure and beautiful in time. I think there will be many guys who can't help pursuing her. Time Magazine. The aspirations of mankind from immortality to the present will be realized in the near future, because there is Yihai, the great scientist in this world. It is more lively than the last blood virus. The blood virus only involves the internet, but the life potion is related to everyone's life. Almost after the news was issued, it didn't take long to go to every website of the World Network, and then swept across every corner of the world. Almost no one did not know that a new company in the United States launched a medicine that can delay aging. Anti-aging drugs have long been available in this world. For example, the serum injected by Captain America during World War II has this function. There are other characters, but these drugs are not universal. They are just examples. They are very accidental. And every time this kind of medicine is made very expensive, it needs to consume a lot of resources and cannot be widely promoted. The green kun medicine invented by Yihai can be widely used by the public. As long as it can pay the money, it will shock the government departments. The research part of many countries has temporarily stopped the research in their own hands and invited Yihai to invite them. He went to the local department to give directions. Of course, Yihai would not be stupid. Any invitation to him would be ignored. For him, this medicine is only a pediatric medicine. Qing-kun medicine is the inspiration he got after studying the genes of vampires in the eternal life, and deleted some shortcomings of vampire viruses, and then removed some of the effects of increasing physical fitness, is a completely weakened version of the vampire virus agent. It does not have the bloodthirsty vampire, nor is it afraid of sunlight, no beast special, cannot live for hundreds of years, can only stimulate cellular activity to delay aging. In order to make more money, he further weakened the effect of the medicament and turned it into a medicament that cannot change genes. It is not a medicament that solves the body's genes at one time, but a medicament that needs to be injected every day. In fact, it is not difficult for him to change a person's genes at once and live for hundreds of years like Captain America. But he didn't do it. Good things need to appear slowly. This is also a business operation method. This can make more money. Anyway, there are rich people in this world. Yihai now sets the price, not to mention the rich. Many middle class in the United States can also pay. In order to extend life, these people will definitely buy. In fact, it is true that Yihai thought that after the pharmacy was launched, it was swept away instantly. It was completely in short supply. Yihai Biological Company needed to work overtime. The owner, the Ministry of Finance reports that after 5 days of sales, the pharmacy has sold more than 6 million cents and earned $6 billion US. Zhan Nuhui reported, however, the inventory has been sold out, and the Ministry of Finance predicts that there will be with about 5 million fixed customers. The production line in our factory is far from enough, and we have requested to increase the production line and expand the production scale. Quote, okay, I promise. About 5 million regular customers. Yi Hai was a little surprised. There are so many rich people in this world. A fixed customer of around 5 million means that they will consume 5 million parts of medicine every day. One medicine is $1,000, which means that they can earn $5 billion a day. Such a big profit is really scary. Those who are in power will definitely want to see Yi Hai's profit now. Yi Hai can expect that he will have a lot of trouble in the future. To solve these problems, he must find some allies to take risks together. Sure enough, Zhan Nu also said, the owner, the Rockefeller of the United States, Chicago, Mellon, DuPont, Boston and other chaebols, Japan's Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Sumitomo and Yasuda and other chaebols, as well as the world's chaebols send an invitation to the top of the company and want to work with us. Quote, come here so soon. Yi Hai smiled. He only thought for a moment and knew that he couldn't afford to swallow such a large profit. He needed to find some allies to share it, and laughed. Except for the Japanese chaebol, other countries can pick out a part to cooperate. Remember, it must be a chaebol with good views on the mutants, and the worst must be groups that have no history of violence against the mutants. Quote, yes, master. After Zhan Nu explained the task, she entered a slight thought, and said, master, are you going to declare yourself a mutant? No, but if anyone can guess, I won't deny it. With his current status and wealth, even if an outsider knows that he is a mutant, who dares to persecute him? If anyone dares to do so, the US government will definitely jump out and tear the offending guy into pieces. Now that the US government has discovered huge economic potential from Yi Hai's powerful innovation capabilities will cause a new technological revolution in the world, stimulate the economic development of the United States, and emerge in economically troubled areas such as the same mud. A rapid development. Yi Hai is now the treasure of Americans. It can be said that he can support the American economy by himself. Many people can see this, including other countries, so many countries want to invite Yi Hai to become their nationals, such as Japan, Russia, China, France, the United Kingdom and other big countries. Their invitation conditions are very favorable, but Yi Hai did not hesitate to decline. However, he will also consider cooperating with some of these countries, such as China, and he will consider technical support. After all, he was born in China, although it is not China in this world. It is just that the world's Chinese social structure is equally complex, and it is not suitable for people like Yi Hai to trust. That morning, after Yi Hai had eaten breakfast, he walked into his laboratory, and after scanning the body data, the laboratory's equipment automatically started, flashing an inexplicable light. Yi Hai looked at the empty laboratory and asked the air, Xuanvi, what news should you pay attention to recently? The biggest news recently is the birth of our company's Qingkun Pharmacy, and the Nobel jury decided to make you the Nobel Prize winner for this year. Yi Hai just smiled and said indifferently, this is good news. Is there anything else? Master, your alma mater Harvard will give you an honorary doctorate degree. So I am now a real doctor. Yi Hai smiled unexpectedly. Now outsiders call him Dr. Yi. In fact, his degree is only a bachelor's degree, 160, is far from the doctoral degree, but his ability is far more than those so-called doctoral degrees, so everyone calls him a doctorate. This is just a respectable title. Now, Haval University has awarded him an honorary doctorate degree, and he is a real doctorate. Master, Harvard University is going to hold a ceremony for you and ask if you are free to go. Yi Hai thought for a while, and felt that he had experienced this body at Harvard University. He was not familiar with Harvard at all, so he shook his head and said, forget it, I am not familiar with Harvard. Okay. Zhan Nu quickly created a simple form of rejection letter and gave it to Harvard University. She now appears to be Yi Hai's steward and assistant, and is an efficient assistant. The human assistant cannot communicate with her at all. Comparable. Master, Miss Gwen's alma mater, Imperial University of New York, sends you an invitation to invite you to speak. Yi Hai said unpleasantly. there should be a lot of similar invitations. Shuanvi, you have refused me, I have no time to go out and walk around blindly. Yes, master, this invitation letter was actually sent by Miss Gwen. She seems to be in trouble. A handsome man with arrogance and genius is pursuing her. Miss Gwen wants to take you over to slap. Miss Gwen said, Master, you have been staying in the laboratory and not going out. This is not a good thing. I hope that you will go out and walk. At least take some time to accompany your girlfriend, otherwise your girlfriend will be empty and no one will comfort you. Will be taken away. Quote. Yi-hai suddenly hesitated. He laughed. Gwen herself is not a nerd, son, she still has a face to say me, but yes, I haven't been out for a long time. Zan Nu, reply Imperial University of New York, I will go to the lecture. What time is their scheduled time? Quote. This requires your host's reply, so they can arrange it. Zan Nu quickly created a recovery letter. After a few minutes, she said, the other party has already responded. They arranged for the host tomorrow. I don't know if the host is there. Time. It seems Gwen can't wait to see me. Yi-hai smiled slightly. Then tomorrow. Yes, Shuanvi, are there any other news? Yi-hai smiled. Need news that interests me, no matter how big or small. There is a piece of news, and I think the owner will be interested. What is it? There were rumors more than 10 days ago that military tycoon Tony Stark was killed in a terrorist attack. What? Yi-hai was startled and asked, that dude really died? It's not decided yet, these are just rumors, and not many people pay attention to this, but Tony did not appear in public places for more than 10 days, but it is very common for this scientist. But today there are a big change. At 8 o'clock this morning, the U.S. Army Department issued a message confirming that Tony Stark was attacked by terrorists in Afghanistan. There should be no danger to life. The terrorists have snatched it away and hidden it in an unknown area. Here, the U.S. military is trying to rescue. Quote. Yi-hain breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that he is not in danger. The plot should evolve according to the original steps. After this, the will become an Iron Man serving the American people. Tell me to follow this playboy, and let me know as soon as there is news. Okay, master. As always, Yi-hai worked tonight, but today he did not continue to work overtime, but remembered Gwen's complaint today, saying that he had not been with her for a long time. He jumped out of the glass window and flew to Gwen, home. Soon he arrived at Gwen's house. He fell to the window of Gwen's room, opened the window with force, and jumped in lightly. Gwen was reading a book on the desk, a quiet and beautiful look. Yi-hai was excited, walked gently, and suddenly hugged her. What? Gwen was startled and found Yi-hai. He immediately smiled like a flower, hit his chest with his hands, and complained, You guy, remember to come and see me. Did you forget to return? Have I such a girlfriend? Quote. How could that be? Yi-hai looked at Gwen, and laughed, Don't you say that emptiness is mo. I thought you would comfort yourself with a massager. I didn't expect to be reading a book, haha. Gwen giggled. If I'm lonely, I just need to find a handsome guy. Where do I need a massager? Okay, you still want to derail, it seems I have to feed you. Yi-hegwa screamed and hugged Gwen on the bed, and flew forward. When the two of them talked wildly, Gwen even yelled at home, leading her mother to her, and knocking on the door for a while before her mother let her converge. It looks like this girl is really hungry. Yi-hai couldn't help thinking, I'll satisfy her today. Yi-hai's body is just like Wolverine's ability to recover from metamorphosis. He just softened, but he was able to make a living again in a few seconds, as was Gwen, so the two can keep doing it until the day Wasteland is old. Suddenly Yi-hai jumped up from the bed, leapt to the window, looked with his right hand, and grabbed a man's neck. This man was in a red and black uniform, wearing a hood, and naturally was Spider-Man Peter. Peter panted, Don't get me wrong, I didn't listen to the wall, I just came. Yi-hai let go of him, and Peter suddenly breathed on his neck. Yi-hai asked coldly, What are you doing? I'm here to find Gwen's father, Mr. Stacy. Peter gasped for a while, finally recovering and complained, Dude, don't you know how much of your strength? You almost broke me just now neck. Quote. If you look for Director Stacy, you should go to the main entrance. What do you run to this window for? Yi-hai said politely. Peter yelled, Don't you think you're too crazy? Gwen heard the street call a few times, and I can't help running over here because of my eaves, and I'm caught by you. Yi-hai was a little embarrassed by what he said. This time, Gwen's cry was indeed a little loud. Gwen slightly blushed and said, "Yi, don't be embarrassed by Peter. Everyone is friends. Too serious." Quote. Okay. Yi-hai looked at Gwen a little speechlessly. It seemed that the girl was not angry about the incident. It is estimated that she was so unafraid to yell, and she was already mentally prepared. This kind of thing can be big or small, and they are always disturbed when they are excited, but Yi-hai knows Peter is a man, and he must not be intentional. This guy was running on the wall, and it was normal to pass Gwen's window. Well, go and find your Mr. Stacy. Yi-hai let go of Peter. Peter looked at Yi-hai weirdly, and then looked at Gwen in the sheet, saying, "You don't want to continue. It's off to you." Yi-hai scolded in a fit of anger. A thought flashed out. Peter was suddenly hit by an invisible force. He flew out suddenly and fell on the lawn. As soon as Peter stood up, he saw a little boy staring at him with bright eyes. The little boy was surprised and said, "Are you Spider-Man?" "Yes, I am." Peter held up his little hand and asked, "Can you tell me your name?" It was Gwen's family who could have appeared in front of Gwen's house. Today he has something to ask for, so he is very kind. "My name is Simon, and it's Gwen's brother." The little boy blinked curiously and asked, "Spider-Man, are you here to save my sister?" "Save your sister?" Peter cried strangely. "Your sister is in trouble." Simon looked at the door and approached Peter mysteriously, saying, "My sister called for hours, and her cry was so painful, but my mother didn't let us take her sister to the hospital. She said my sister was fine. She likes this. My sister must have offended her mother, or my sister was not born by my mother. Have you seen Snow White?" Spider-Man. Snow White was poisoned by her stepmother. Quote. Oh, no matter what the expression of Spider-Man with a mask would be, Yi-hai, who was very good at hearing, couldn't help laughing, and he said to Gwen on the bed, "Look, you made your cute brother suspicious." Quote. Gwen shrugged indifferently. "Relax, he'll forget in a few days, and in a few years, he should understand." Although she said so on her mouth, in fact she was embarrassed at the heart, and she wouldn't go on thinking about it. She quickly put on her clothes, took a few steps on the spot, and then pulled Yi-hai down the stairs. "I'm curious, this Spider-Man came to my house to do something with my father. Isn't my dad looking for him? He dared to come to my house. Last time about the Lizard Man, the police had figured out that Spider-Man did not break the law, so he has cancelled his wanted for Spider-Man," Yi-hai said. The two walked down the stairs to see Gwen's father, George, on the sofa in the living room, and Spider-Man Peter sitting opposite him. George saw Yi-hai and took a meaningful look at Gwen. Gwen suddenly had a fever on her cheeks, and she felt a little too excited. She didn't know how her parents would be reprimanded. "Director Stacy, please give me a chance. I think I will be a good policeman. You see that I have a good hand to help you fight criminals," Peter said. George looked at Peter's red and black hood and shook his head. "Sorry, boy, if you want to be a police officer, you need to go to the police training department and disclose your identity and your files," Peter said. "Can you break me down? I think I'm very capable." Yi-hai and Gwen were a little surprised. Peter wanted to be a police officer, but the chief of the police was not willing to accept him. George said slowly, "We have no precedent for this thing, and our police station is a very strict department. Although I am the director of the police station, I do not have the right to make an exception to draw you into the police force. It is impossible for our police force to let history unknown people enter. Lad, if you want to be a police officer, the first step is to disclose your identity to us. Can you do it, child?" Quote. "That's right. Looks like I went the wrong way. Chief Stacy, goodbye." Peter stood up in disappointment and walked out of the door. Simon stopped him at this moment, holding the notebook in his hand and saying, "Spider-Man, can you sign for me?" Of course. Peter wrote the English name of Spider-Man very friendly on his notebook. "Goodbye, Simon." "Spider-Man, you are great." Simon looked at Peter admiration. "Simon, you don't have to worship me. In fact, your brother-in-law is much better than me." Peter smiled slightly. "Do you mean Yi-hai? He always sneaks into my sister's room, researching their subject all the time." "Yes, this is a subject that both men and women like, and you will know when you grow up." You must know when you grow up. It must be difficult, right? Yes, it's difficult, for your age. Spider-Man touched Simon's head and waved to Yi-Hai. Dee. An alarm sounded suddenly, clearly heard in the hall. Chapter 71. Yi-Hai suddenly stared, took out his mobile phone and asked, Shuanvi, what happened? Someone broke into your laboratory. Zhan Nu's cold voice appeared in the hall. This voice seemed to be an intelligent creature. The people present except Gwen looked at Yi-Hai curiously. Someone broke into your laboratory. It seems to be stealing. I immediately sent someone to arrest them. George immediately stood up. He knew that Yi-Hai's current status was unsuitable for adventure, and it was the police's job to arrest the thief. Let me do it, Director George. Peter was still as enthusiastic as ever. He ran out of the door immediately, through a silk thread, and then swayed out, disappearing into the night sky. Great, exclaimed Simon. This Spider-Man has to be nosy again. George said helplessly. Don't say that, Dad. Spider-Man is also an enthusiastic person. He is helping us. He is a good citizen. Gwen couldn't bear to see her father always being a big bag, as if it was the patent of the police to fight against underworld forces. Well, I admit that the child is an enthusiastic person. George loosened his shoulders. He immediately made a phone call to his men, and then looked around strangely, and asked, Yi-Hai, where did he go? He doesn't. Is it going to catch those thieves? Quote. It should be gone, Dad, you can rest assured, you know his ability, he will be fine. Gwen laughed. I don't worry about him. This guy is as strong as a bull. George said helplessly. But he's different now. There are some things that don't require him to take the initiative. I am right. Quote. Just let him exercise, better than he's always in the lab. Gwen grinned. Yi-Hai quickly flew back to Yi-Hai Bio-Industries laboratory. It was dark inside, and several figures were shaking. Yi-Hai can see things in the dark. I saw 5 people in the experiment wearing bloated clothes and flipping through the boxes, seemingly looking for something. Yi-Hai is hidden in the darkness. First see what they are looking for. What these things are, we can't find any useful information at all, a little man complained, holding a computer in his hand. At this time, a tall man yelled, Fool, who asked you to move those useless things? The employer asked us to find a central computer. We just need to find the central computer and move it back. So, what does the central computer look like, head? Since the central computer has the word computer, it should be similar to our usual computer. Can you see which of these computers is the central computer? The 5 people immediately found it, but there were many computers in the laboratory, and they could not be sure that it was a central computer. Head, why don't we work hard and take all these computers back? Someone suggested. The big man patted the man's head and scolded. You stupid, how many computers are there? More than 50 or 60, we are only 5 of us, can we take them back? What then? If we ask the employer, he should always know. Okay, said the big man, and he connected a phone. Hey, butler, let me ask you, what does a central computer look like? After waiting for a while, the big man seemed to understand. He hung up his mobile phone and said, the central computer is very large. Generally, there is a separate room for it. You should look for it. When Yi-Hai saw that the other party had contacted the employer, he patted his hand. The lights in the laboratory suddenly turned on. The surrounding area was bright and bright. The 5 people were shocked and turned to look at Yi-Hai. It will be discovered that the reason why these people were bloated was wearing thick fireproof clothing, and they were carrying an unknown box behind them. Yi-Hai said silently, Are you all funny? Are you stealing and wearing fireproof clothing? A tall man, headed by him, said rudely, We are fireproof, anti-theft and Spider-Man. Hello everyone, I'm your good neighbor, Spider-Man. Speaking a similar advertisement, Spider-Man Peter jumped in from the window, stood beside Yi-Hai, saw these 5 people, and was slightly surprised. It's so hot, you have the courage to dare to run into my hood to the troubled place. Quote. Spider-Man, this is our proper job, you're here to make trouble. The tall man was very hot. He raised a steel pipe in his hand and aimed at Peter. Suddenly, a fiery flame sprayed out of the pipe. The temperature in the room increased instantly, but suddenly it fell, and the flame went out instantly. The whole room was suddenly covered with misty frost. Spider-Man Peter coldly shouted, he cried. What's going on? Why did it suddenly cool down? This temperature must be at least minus 30 degrees. Suddenly looking at the hot heat and his 4 men in shock, I saw that these 5 people turned into ice sculptures in an instant, still maintaining the original movements and expressions, looking very funny, but shuddering. This is what you did, Dr. Yi. Spider-Man looked at Yi-Hai in fear. It's just a small punishment for them. Yi-Hai said, I didn't kill them, they will leave it to the police to deal with it. You are doing right. We are good citizens. We cannot do murder. Peter agrees with Yi-Hai's approach. And I am a policeman. I only arrest crimes. Peter, do you really want to be a policeman? Yi-Hai looked at Peter in surprise. Aren't you doing this well? You can march freely. If you mess up, you don't have to be responsible. If you are a policeman, your identity is to let the police know. Peter thought for a while and said, I want to be a police officer, but my identity will never be made public. Yi, don't tell me your identity. Of course, I can promise that I won't say it. Yi-Haley immediately assured. After the police arrested the thieves, Yi-Hai's face sank. It didn't take long for the last lizard attack. This time a group of thieves came again. The building's defense measures are really bad. Here security is a group of waste. They have no problem with ordinary people, but they can't deal with special people. Although Yi-Hai is confident of his programming ability, even if the other party steals the central computer, he cannot crack the core content, but he is repeatedly invaded. He is always uncomfortable. Something must be done to strengthen the defense of the building. Considering that he has too many secrets and those security guards are not reliable, Yi-Hai thinks that it is best to use some robots as guards. Xuanvi, search for the best defense robot on the market. Quote. Yes. As soon as the voice fell, a row of text and pictures appeared on a large screen. The arrangement was very detailed and complete, and it was very user-friendly. It would take several days for people to do it, but Zon the girl was done in a second. There are a lot of these contents, but Yi-Hai only finished reading it in more than 10 seconds. It can be seen that such an efficient Yi-Hai, ordinary people cannot complete his requirements, only Zon Nu can be competent. These products come from various robot manufacturers in the United States. Most of them are toys and factory automation robots, and there are few robots in the military industry. Yi-Hai looked at the performance of these robots, but he was not satisfied. His brain moved quickly, and he felt that he could design more advanced robots than them. The core components of the robot are internal systems, which do not have much difficulty for Yi-Hai. Xuanvi, inform the investment department that I will acquire a large robotics factory within a week. Yes, master. After that, Yi-Hai began researching robots. As before, he first asked Xuanvi to search and purchase a large number of robot books from the internet, and even directly invaded the interior of those famous robot factories, stealing a lot of core information, and after integrating and innovating his own mind, Yi-Hai conceived his own robot. This work took one night, and when he reacted from his busy work, the sky outside was already bright. Master, Miss Gwen is already on the road. She wants you to get your groomed as soon as possible. She doesn't want to see a messy boyfriend. Zon Nu said. She came to me for something. Does she BGFH not need to go to school? Yi-Hai wondered. Master, did you forget that you are attending a lecture at Imperial University in New York today? Oh, yes. Yi-Hai touched his head and said, I almost forgot about it, it seems I've been a bit busy recently. Zon Nu, help me arrange my breakfast and clothes. It's ready, master. Yi-Hai often stays in the laboratory. In order to facilitate living, there are many daily necessities here, just like home. After having breakfast, I walked into the dressing room, and rows of clothes appeared in front of Yi-Hai under the control of Zon Nu. Yi-Hai looked at him and shook his head. Xuanvi, you still haven't improved your ability to choose clothes. I always use what you choose for me. Sorry, master, art is my weakness. My learning programs and simulation programs can't feel like humans. Yi-Hai smiled. This is the inherent weakness of your intelligent programs, no matter how you learn it is useless. Is it impossible to perfect my weakness with the master's talent? Yi-Hai hesitated slightly and said, I haven't thought about it. If I take the time to research, it should be perfect. But I don't want to do it now. Why, master? Because making an art program requires obscuring your other programs, it can make you less efficient. Yi-Hai chose a piece of clothing by himself, left the laboratory after putting it on, and took the elevator down the stairs. A luxurious car was parked under Yi-Hai Biological Building. A blonde girl was leaning next to the car. When she saw Yi-Hai, she came quickly and complained, "I heard Zon said that yesterday you didn't sleep late, it's not good for you." Quote, "Don't you worry about your body." Yi-Hai laughed. "Don't you know our bodies yet? We are not immortal, and fatigue won't find us. But we still have to rest. This is our attitude towards life as humans." Gwen frowned slightly. "I don't want my boyfriend to become a robot." "Don't worry, I won't be a robot." Yi-Hai smiled slightly. "Speaking of robots, I plan to make robots myself, and I have let the investment department buy robot manufacturing plants. It seems that your work pressure has increased again." Gwen's focus is completely different from Yi-Hai's, but she knows Yi-Hai's quirks. This is a very innovative person. She can only roll her eyes and say, "Anyway, now you have money." Quote, Yi-Hai took her hand and said, "Okay. We won't say this anymore. I'll take a vacation today. How about staying with you all day?" "Great," Gwen said happily. "Let's find a place to have fun. I haven't played at your school yet. When I'm finished speaking, you ask me to see there." "Okay, no problem." The two got into Gwen's car and drove out. About half an hour later, the car entered Imperial University of New York. After hearing Yi-Hai's arrival, the president of the university brought a group of professors to greet him personally. The scene was quite grand and hot, accompanied by a large group of journalists and students. On a playground, Yi-Hai stood on the lecture table and started his lecture. He did not prepare any speech this time. The pediatrics of this kind of lecture have no pressure on him. Today's topic is mainly on the biological gene. In order to take care of the students below, he talked clearly and was not complicated at all. It was fun. Boom. As everyone listened intently, a loud noise burst suddenly on the side of the playground. More than 10 military vehicles rushed into the school gate and quickly opened to the side. What happened? Everyone looked at more than a dozen military vehicles in confusion. This is a famous campus in New York. There were even military vehicles coming on the rampage, which made them feel incredible. Seeing this, the president of the university was very angry and planned to talk to the commanders of these soldiers. He got out of the crowd and walked towards the military vehicles. At this time, the military vehicle stopped, and a group of heavily armed soldiers jumped out of the vehicle and ran towards the student group on the playground. A middle-aged man and a beautiful woman suddenly ran out among the people. Both men desperately ran to the other side. The soldiers followed closely, and they seemed to be chasing and arresting them. What's going on here? Arresting terrorists? Everyone looked at each other. I do not know _Soyeon. Yi-Hai could not help arousing curiosity, so he put Superman's hearing and vision into play and focused his attention on the two men and women. "Betty, don't follow me, they're catching me," the man called. "No, Bruce, these soldiers are under my father's hands, and I dare not shoot at random here, so that I can cover you and run away," said the woman named Betty. "Bruce, Betty." Yi-Hai was overjoyed. "Isn't this the Hulk? I've always wanted to find the Hulk to study the cell-strengthening problem. This is a coincidence." "Betty, I can't bother you, you go." At this moment, Bruce suddenly pushed Betty to him. He hurried to a teaching building by himself. The soldiers ignored Betty and all chased after Bruce. The military vehicles came from all directions and surrounded the teaching building. Live. An armored vehicle stopped behind. Betty saw it, ran to it, stopped in front of the armored vehicle, and shouted, "I know you're inside, General, please, let go of Bruce." The people inside ignored it, and Betty shouted, "Dad, please." Bump. The back door of the armored car opened, and General Ross with white hair walked out. Betty ran over to grab General Rose's hand and begged, "Dad, please don't do this, please. You don't know what's going on here, let me in and stay well." General Ross roughly approached Betty into the armored car and said to his female assistant, "Watch her well, don't let her come out and make trouble." "Yes, General." The female assistant was tall and expressionless. She grabbed and held Betty, no matter how Betty struggled. "General, the target jumped into the flyover." A soldier reported. "Don't fire, repeat, don't fire." General Rose shouted. "General, we've trapped him. Throw 2 tear gas bombs in." General Rose ordered. "Yes, General." Soon, the soldiers downstairs took out their weapons, and 2 smoke-laden tear gas grenades were fired out, bumped twice, broke the glass of the overpass, and landed inside the overpass. The tear gas bounced in it, and the white smoke erupted constantly, soon covering the entire bridge. Bruce took off his clothes and covered his nose hard, but imagined it was not very useful at all. Seeing Betty, she broke free of the female officer and jumped off the armored vehicle and ran towards the overpass. "Catch her," Rose ordered. 2 soldiers chased up and grabbed Betty's arm. Betty slammed one elbow back and broke one soldier's neck. The other soldier was furious and threw Betty to the ground very violently. "Can't stand up for a while." Seeing Bruce on the overpass, his heart was furious, and the tear gas kept stimulating him. The desperate plight and the safety of his girlfriend instantly angered another person hidden in his body. "Hulk!" Roar! A deafening horror came out of Bruce's mouth, then his body's skin quickly turned green, his hands, legs, and other parts swelled quickly, and a green beast ripped off his clothes. He smashed the glass window with a punch and jumped down suddenly. Bump! The green monster's thick legs banged heavily on the ground, making a muffled sound, and the whole ground shook a bit, announcing the appearance of a terrifying beast to the world. This green monster is about 3 meters tall, with a green body and naked body. All that is left is a tattered blue pants on the crotch to cover up shame. The thick and strong muscles contain the power of fear, exuding the fierce breath of the beast. The fierce wink and the stingy face all showed that this beast was very dangerous. "This is Hulk, a Hulk. Hulk, let me see how powerful you are." Yi-Hai looked at this monster full of expectations. "I was like to see if the Hulk could match itself in strength. His power is extremely powerful, he has not found an opponent, and the Hulk is also known for his strength. He naturally also has the intention to compare it, or he has been inspired to compete and win." Everyone on the playground looked at Hulk in horror, and some timid girls even screamed. "Soldier, evacuate the common people here safely, move fast," General Ross shouted. More than a dozen soldiers ran to the students and called out, "Dear students, please leave here, please leave here. There will be danger here, please leave." After listening to the students and teachers, they hurried to the teaching building at the back, and quickly disappeared. Yi-Hai pulled Gwen up to a teaching building, watching the Hulk with great interest. At this moment, Hulk had already handed in the army long ago. The soldier's rifle kept firing, and the bullets crackled on Hulk. Hulk was unharmed, not even a layer of skin was injured. It ran towards the soldiers quickly against the bullet, kicked a military vehicle on the roadside, grabbed it with thick arms, held the military vehicle, smashed it on the ground, and within a few moments, the military vehicle became a pile of waste iron. Hulk grabbed a piece of scrap iron and threw it forward. With a bang, a military vehicle in front was smashed flat and slid out dozens of meters before stopping. The soldiers inside had already lost their lives. Hulk had an iron plate of a huge military vehicle in his hand, and flew up and down like 2 axes, killing all the soldiers around him like chopping melon and cutting vegetables. Blood raged, the flames soared, and the screams of soldiers kept coming. The soldiers suffered heavy casualties, but none escaped. They continued to fire at Hulk, showing that this army is a well-trained special elite. When General Ross saw something bad, he shouted into the microphone, "It's your turn." Not far away, a lieutenant dropped the weapon in his hand, took a special cannon barrel, and shouted to the soldiers around him, "You cover me." Yes, this man is Bronsky, a battle-hardened king who has completed many dangerous missions, is proficient in various weapons and the skill of killing. A few days ago, he also injected special genetic medicine. The body further strengthens. 00 has Superman physical strength, which makes him full of confidence. Just now he had been observing this Hulk, and found that this Hulk has a thick skin, but he is not very rational, and this can be used. Bronsky hurriedly walked towards Hulk. He fired as he walked. Small cannonballs flew on the Hulk. The Hulk was hit back and forth, but that's it. These powerful artillery shells still without hurting Hulk a bit. He made him even more angry, throwing the iron plate in his hands at Bronsky. The iron plate made a rushing sound of breaking through the air, and Bronsky was taken aback by surprise. He flew away quickly and hit another Hulk. Hulk took a step back, roared loudly, and hurried toward brown sky on a huge step. Bronsky quickly fired, but found that there were no more bullets. throwing away the weapon in his hand. His body flexed into the air, stepped on Hulk's shoulder, and jumped lightly behind Hulk. "Do you remember me, you beast?" Brown Sky smugly said. Hulk's green eyes ate and ate, and he suddenly waved his hands, hitting Bronsky with no sign. Bronsky flew hundreds of meters away and smashed into a "I don't know if I live or die" on the thick tree. Where the beast ran out this time, it was pretty powerful. Gwen said, watching the fight below. "It's pretty powerful, but it only uses brute force. If he is only to this extent, I will deal with him easily." Yi-Hai's discourse was full of disdain and confidence. He just analyzed the power of Hulk a moment ago. The Hulk in this world should be a movie version, or it is still very small, and it doesn't have the incredible magic in comics, power. Then you don't hurry to stop him from killing. Gwen's face was full of anger. "You see how this beast has made our school, the headmaster is probably going to be mad." "Okay, no problem." After he said that, he went straight into the sky. He flew very fast. He arrived at Hulk almost instantly. Between Hulk's gods, he punched him in the chest, and Hulk flew like a shell. After going out, smashing through a wall, there was no movement for a long time. The people who watched were shocked to see Yi-Hai floating in the air. Teachers and students of Imperial University in New York recognized it. "Isn't this Mr. Yi-Hai giving a speech? How could he be like a Superman?" These people are full of doubts and more excitement, looking forward to Yi-Hai being able to solve this beast. "Who is this person? Check it out." General Rose stared brightly at Yi-Hai, flying in the air. The efficiency of the army is very fast. They quickly scanned Yi-Hai's facial features, and then found Yi-Hai's identity information within a few seconds. "General, this person is Yi-Hai. He is a newly rising rich man. Yi-Hai Network and Yi-Hai Bio Industry are both his industry, and he seems to have a close relationship with S.H.I.E.L.D. The genetic research is called Earth. The first person, who has a close relationship with the Mutant Academy, often helps the mutant, and suspects that this person may be a mutant." Quote. It turned out to be him. General Rose was surprised. The name Yi-Hai is probably unknown to anyone in the world, and he is familiar with his deeds. As a high-level figure, General Rose knew Yi-Hai better. General Rose's eyes flickered indefinitely. "It seems that he is a mutant. Take our men down and let Dr. Yi solve this beast." "Yes." Boom. There was a loud noise, and a large hole was knocked on the wall. The huge green figure jumped out again, and he rushed with his teeth gritted. The immense momentum, the fierce face, all the people around looked frightened, and the heart did not fight jumping non-stop. Huok saw Yi-Hai stand still in the air, and a contempt of anger climbed onto his big face and yelled, "Go and die, you weak man." Huok kicked his legs violently on the ground, and his huge body rose like the height of Mount Tai. His huge fists were raised high, and he seemed to want to smash Yi-Hai into a flesh. Looking at Hawk, who was approaching, Yi-Hai had a relaxed smile in his mouth. This was a confident smile. He didn't escape, so he watched Hawk just fly towards him. Seeing him so big, Hulk was even more angry. A cruel smile appeared on his face. The power in his body was triggered by the anger, and a more powerful force broke out. The huge force caused a huge wind pressure. Hulk, but that's it. The huge wind pressure. Yi-Hai turned a blind eye, and the moment he hit the huge fist, he shot. Quickly probing with both hands, just like lightning, grabbed the fist that Huok smashed, and then suddenly swooped down, smashing Huok on the ground, and then he smashed so much, no stop smashing. 1, 2, 3. After smashing for more than 20 times, a huge pothole was left on the ground, and Yi-Hai put down Hauke. At this moment, Huok was dizzy with a smash, but to Yi-Hai's surprise, this guy was still unharmed, and seemed to be completely irritated. The green eyes burst out with mad fury. "You irritated me, miscellaneous." Hulk shouted roughly, "Lu, I will let you see my power." The greater Hulk's damage, the more angry he becomes, the more powerful he becomes. Roar. Roaring like a beast from Hulk's mouth, his huge figure hit Yi-Hai fiercely like a train, making a dull impact. Yi-Hai still chose to directly collide with Hulk. This time, he felt that Hulk's power was very strong, completely beyond his expectation, and he was blown out by a punch. However, with his strong defensive ability and recovery ability, this punch did not hurt him, but was slightly excited in his heart, and finally met a decent opponent. Relying on his keen control of his body, he maintained the balance of the body in an instant, and his body suddenly flew and suddenly stopped in midair. At this moment, Hulk ran towards his body flying upside down with anger, and the speed was even as fast as his reverse flight. Now saw Yi-Hai stabilize his body, and Hulk immediately punched Yi-Hai. Beat your face. The huge green fist was extremely fast, drawing a sharp cracking sound in the air. Being able to punch through the air shows how powerful this punch is. So strong. This time Yi-Hai didn't dare to enlarging, and with a twist of his body, he reached behind Hu-Kei, then his eyes turned red, and two thick laser beams shot out from his eyes, tearing a little behind Hu-Kei's back. Hole, the green blood flowed down, but healed quickly, and quickly recovered as before. Yi-Hai secretly pursed his tongue. With such a powerful attack, the other party suffered only a small injury and healed quickly. With such a metamorphosis ability, it is difficult to find a weapon that can kill him in this world. Roar! Hu-Kei screamed, turned suddenly, his fist slashed at Yi-Hai. His attack was very fierce, but Yi-Hai only smiled slightly and easily avoided the past. He is now a level 4 brain domain, with extremely metamorphic responsiveness and agility, and can easily escape Hulk's attacks. Wow! Yi-Hai quickly flew around Hulk, and the crystal-like air flow spewed out of his hands. Hulk's huge body condensed a huge block of ice, but he became an ice sculpture in 10 seconds. Then, the ice continued to expand and eventually turned into an iceberg that was hundreds of meters wide. The iceberg exuded a cold, which caused a cold wind to blow around the air, and Hulk's huge body was trapped in the very center of the iceberg, which looked far from a green decoration in the ice hockey. Such a spectacle appeared in a short period of time, and the onlookers were suddenly stunned. They all looked at the scene inconceivably. Yi-Hai's powerful ability completely shocked everyone. Yi-Hai took a look and flew in front of Rose. The soldier next to General Ross immediately raised his weapon in his hands and stared nervously at Yi-Hai. General Ross waved his hand to lower the soldier's weapon and smiled at Yi-Hai. "Hello Dr. Yi, I'm General Ross." Yi-Hai's eyes were cold, and he said politely, "I know you, General, your behavior today is really reckless. You ran to our school to catch that beast. Fortunately, I am here, or the beast initiated a madness. You can control people and the consequences are unimaginable." Quote. Rose smiled bitterly. "We made a mistake and didn't expect this Hulk to be so powerful. We couldn't take all the weapons we prepared. Dr. Yi, thank you for your help. I will report to the government for your appreciation. That can this beast get out of trouble?" Quote. Well, Yi-Hai just nodded slightly, and said, "I am trapping him now to calm him down, and when his anger is almost gone, there is no danger." At this time Betty beside Rose asked with concern, "Is he in danger?" Quote. Yi-Hai smiled. "This lady, don't worry, there is probably nothing in the world that can hurt him. I still have something, so let's go." After speaking, he turned around and flew away, leaving only the two fathers and daughters of Rose with their own concerns. Rose frowned at Yi-Hai's departure. This made him realize the power of the mutants. He also knew a lot about the capabilities of the mutants. The military had a special research department. There are hundreds of thousands of mutants on this level. I am afraid that 10 of them cannot be found. Such characters are extremely destructive and very difficult to control. However, Ross is a soldier. He is reliant on Yi-Hai's ability, but with Yi-Hai's status and wealth, he is not afraid to offend in his capacity and can only cooperate. You need to find some time to talk to this genius, Ross thought. Yi-Hai returned to Gwen, greeted her, and hurriedly flew back to the laboratory. Looking at Yi-Hai who flew back quickly, Gwen felt helpless. Based on her understanding of Yi-Hai, this guy must have got the Hulk's blood. He hurried back to study the beast. Gwen expected that Yi-Hai was so anxious to go back that he wanted to study the Hulk's capabilities. When he heard Hulk with a laser eye just now, he collected some green liquids with the power of mind. These liquids were enough for his experiments for a while. Hulk's ability is too sensitive, so he chose to sneak it. As for the Hulk, throw it to General Ross to solve it, if he can catch Hulk. However, Yi-Hai estimated that the iceberg was still unable to trap the Hulk, and he would escape after a while. After returning to the laboratory, Yi-Hai said, "Xuanvi, help me monitor the Hulk at Imperial University in New York. He will keep me informed of any situation." "Okay, Master." Yi-Hai had a slap-sized ice cube in his hand, and a pile of green liquid was frozen in the cold, which was the blood of Hulk. Yi-Hai flashed a thought. The ice cube was like melting into a stove, quickly melted into water, and dropped on the ground, but within a few seconds, the green blood was suspended in midair. Yi-Hai drips the blood into several test tubes, and then puts the test tubes into the test bed. The test bed is controlled by the mysterious woman and will analyze the blood component data step by step in accordance with the order. This process usually takes a long time, usually 3 to 5 days. Yi-Hai put the matter down and continued the robotics project last night. After being busy for half an hour, the door of the laboratory opened. Gwen walked in angrily and stared at him. Yi-Hai froze slightly and smiled bitterly. Sorry, I'm so excited, I forgot to date you. Gwen stared at him straight, then suddenly smiled again, and waved. Just playing with you. Did you get that Hulk's blood today? Yi-Hai Song took a sigh of relief and nodded. Yes. I have asked Zon Nu to analyze the status quo, but I don't know the current situation, but I expect that I can use his blood to study ways to increase the strength of cells. Serum, we can fuse more mutant human genes. Quote. That's great. Gwen was also happy, and she silently said at random, Yi-Hai, today you exposed your ability in school. Yes, I guess it has been released by the media, and I don't know what those people think. Yi-Hai shrugged indifferently. Gwen hesitated and said, I am afraid that many people will be hostile to you. For example, my current school is like this. Many students have protested. They do not welcome mutants to come to the school. Therefore, the principal is helpless. Let me say sorry to you. He said that he can't invite you to speak at school. Quote. I expected that I left your university right away, that's why. Yi-Hai smiled and looked at Gwen. I'm worried about you now. Gwen, now your classmates know that your boyfriend is a mutant, what would they think of you? Quote. Gwen frowned slightly. The students gave me a good look after you left. This group of ungrateful things don't want to think about who kept their school or even their fate. Quote. Well, no need to complain, big deal is not going to school. Yi-Hai smiled slightly, touching her delicate face, and said, working with me is faster and more efficient than your university studies, right? Gwen gave him a blank look and said, please, your IQ is so abnormal. In this laboratory, I can only do it for you. Well, it should be said that I can't even do it. I can only be your maid. Her little white and tender hand nodded in Yi-Hai's nose and continued, and your doll, on the doll. Quote. Is that bad? I'm satisfied, haha. Yi-Hai haha laughed. I'm satisfied with you, Gwen said in a loud voice. Gwen was determined to be a scientist from a young age, a scientist who has made his own contribution to science, but with you now, it can only be yours. For comparison, the world just knows you Yi-Hai, no one knows me Gwen. Quote. Relax, Gwen, you will become a woman behind a great scientist, and you see, you will be beautiful. Yi-Hai grinned. That's not my dream, Gwen said distressed, eyes full of confusion. Seeing Yi-Hai, she quickly stopped at her waistline and said gently, Gwen, you don't need to worry about these things, your dreams, as your boyfriend and future husband, I will definitely help you. It's not difficult for me. Quote. He said earnestly. Not to mention how terrible I am, after all, it's just a person. I can't do everything myself. I need a partner and team. The laboratory you look at is only me. Why is it so? Not because I have too many secrets. The technology I make is too advanced to be exposed. I need someone I can trust to help me. Gwen, can you help me? Quote. Gwen Sapphire's eyes flashed a thought, and she was silent for a moment, and said, of course, Yi, I'm happy to help you, as long as you don't think I'm clumsy. You are a genius girl, who dares to say you are stupid, I killed him. Yi-Hai grinned, suddenly lowered his head, stabilized Gwenfang, smooth lips, the breathing of the two became urgent, and started directly in the laboratory. The two struggled until the afternoon when they separated, and Yi-Hai, holding Gwen's smooth body, said, today we went to your school to find your principal, and said that I have raised you as a chick, and I won't need to come to school in future courses now, my chief scientist on Earth will teach. Quote. Well, I will be your student in the future. Gwen Cat said in Yi-Hai's arms. And my doll. Yi-Hai grinned. Gwen suddenly got angry and grabbed him a few times with his paw, but sighed in her heart, she was really helpless. In Gwen's own opinion, Yi-hai was right. Her main identity in the laboratory was Yi-hai's bed. She was a doll, because she had been an assistant to Yi-hai before, and was completely involved in Yi-hai's experiments. Without getting started, she can check the materials that Yi-hai once studied, and some scientific and technological theories that are hundreds of years ahead of the world. The more information she has contacted, the more she discovers the horror of her boyfriend. If she sees these theoretical materials spread, she can definitely improve the current science and technology, especially gene technology. Yi-hai already got incredible places. As he said, the gene technology of the youth Kun agent is now called by mankind the greatest invention of this century, but in this laboratory it is not worth mentioning at all. Yi-hai intends to give her the task of learning part of the knowledge, and then let her manage a group of scientists. Yi-hai plans to take out some basic parts of genetic research to his scientists and let them develop new products that are better than cosmetics that can eliminate wrinkles, medicines for treating cancer, jiaohaohao, and AIDS, serum and more. Those diseases that humans cannot break through are not worth mentioning in Yi-hai, but he can't do it alone, so he needs to recruit a group of scientists, and Gwen is the administrator of these scientists. Baby, let's go to school. Yi-hai slaps Gwen's round hips. Gwen Zhao exclaims, and his fist hits his chest. After the two got dressed, Yi-hai directly embraced Gwen to rise into the air, and flew towards Imperial University of New York quickly. The violent wind was blowing. Gwen looked across the sky in the Middle East, enviously. It feels good to fly in the sky. If you want, I can give you the X gene that can fly, but after you can fly, you need to wear safety pants every day. Yi-hai grinned. Gwen froze slightly, and thought he was quite reasonable. Women flying in the sky would inevitably be peeped by some lecherous men underground. If they were photographed under the skirt, the shame would be great. Can't she always wear safety pants every time she goes out? That's a problem, Gwen said sadly. But I like the feeling of flying. Yi-hai was a little speechless. He was just joking. The chick was really serious. You just don't have to wear a skirt. But I like to wear skirts, and there are women who don't wear skirts. I'm not a soldier, Gwen retorted. Yi-hai was speechless for a while, and suddenly flashed, saying, we can make clothes with changing shapes. Hee, I have always wanted to make a uniform of my own, which can be changed into various styles of clothes. Awesome, Yi-hai, you are a genius. Gwen yelled excitedly and kissed Yi-hai's face. Suddenly Yi-hai swooped down and landed on a green lawn. Some students around them looked at them in awe. It turned out that Imperial University of New York has arrived. A teacher had already seen the two of them, and rushed over and said, Drive Yi, what can I do for you? I want to find your principal. Yi-hai said, he's on the playground, protesting with those soldiers, making a mess in our school. They should all go to military court. In this teacher's curse, Yi-hai flew up with Gwen again, causing envy and hatred below. At the moment in the playground, the iceberg was still standing. There were many soldiers guarding it to prevent outsiders from approaching it. A large group of people gathered on the edge were protesting. Herman Charlie, the principal of Imperial University of New York, blasted the military with a loud voice in front of a group of journalists. I protest, solemnly protest. This is a school. It is a quiet and peaceful school. Your soldiers have no right to use it for military purposes. General Rose said unhurriedly, sorry, we don't want to do this either, but we must guard here. I think everyone also sees the destructive power of this beast. He is very dangerous, extremely dangerous, this danger creature. Rest assured that he is playing unscrupulously in New York City. You are not afraid that when he goes mad, tear your car into pieces, or climb into your building and break your windows. Don't you think it is safe to stay at home? The beast can break the wall effortlessly. Look at the big holes in the teaching building. This beast crashed out. You said, can you rest assured that something like this is strolling outside? Quote. The people around were stunned, and many people felt that he was justified, and greatly increased his affection for him. Don't worry, you have to close it. Better to kill. Do we have any weapons to kill this monster, General? Isn't your army beaten by monsters? And it has also lost a lot of American soldiers. Without Dr. Yi's help, this university would have been demolished by this beast. Facing the inquiries of journalists, General Rose was very calm. He said slowly, it is true that our military was caught off guard by mistake at the beginning, but we have a lot of weapons that are powerful because they are in cities. No, but we are fully capable of killing him. We will take this beast back and kill him. Quote. Lying, you are lying, BGBB. Suddenly Charlie jumped out, yelling at General Rose's face, you want to capture this monster and then do research to create more of these monsters. I have seen so many of you soldiers, and you can disregard everything in order to make powerful weapons. Quote. Principal, your judgment is arbitrary. We are the army that protects the country. Everything we do is for this country. Faced with the repeated provocations by President Charlie, General Rose was already angry, but in front of the public, he still had to maintain his grace and smile. You are all a bunch of selfish fools. America's international image is corrupted by people like you. Principal, your slander is baseless. While the two were head to head, a reporter shouted, look, someone is flying over, is Dr. Yi. A man and a woman flew down near the crowd. Everyone saw that the man was indeed Yi Hai, and they swarmed up. Both Ross and Principal Charlie froze. They didn't know for a moment whether they should continue to quarrel. The reporters surrounded Yi Hai, and a large camera pointed at Yi Hai, just like facing an international superstar. Are you a mutant? Someone asked. Yi Hai said indifferently, yes, I am a mutant, but I am not a terrorist. Your ability is strong enough to deal with the army. Can you guarantee that you will not freeze people into ice cream when you are angry? Yi Hai said calmly, I am a very self-disciplined person and a law-abiding person. I will not act arbitrarily or do illegal things. Moreover, I have a large industry that allows me to live a luxurious life every day. Life, there is a very beautiful girlfriend, if I break the law, I can't enjoy these things. In this case, why should I go to commit a crime? Is it better to be a good American citizen? Remember, friends, I am a mutant, but not a terrorist. Not every mutant is a terrorist. The terrorists and the mutants are only a small part, and I am a legal citizen of the United States, a large taxpayer, and make great contributions to society. Great contribution, not destruction, can't you deny that? Quote. After answering some questions from reporters, Yi Hai came to President Charlie and said, Principal Charlie, because I am a mutant, my girlfriend has been treated unfairly in your school, so this time I wanted her to leave school to teach herself. Such a thing like this. Principal Charlie's face was startled, but Yi Hai judged from the slight changes in his expression, this guy's expression was completely made up. But Yi Hai didn't take it apart and said, I don't have to lie to you with this kind of thing. In the morning, Gwen's classmates are hostile to her. If it's not for my identity, I am afraid these people will hurt her. So, I can't rest assured that she will stay here in such a school. Principal Charlie embarrassed, Drive Yi, I know that many students are biased against mutants, but I promise that neither I nor the school teachers will have such problems. We all have a kind attitude towards mutants. Thank you, the principal, but now the society is more oppressive than the kind to mutants. For her safety, I need to give her a safe environment. Yes, you are right. Principal Charlie was actually reluctant to have mutants in his school, which caused some disputes and the other party could leave. After the two talked again, President Charlie agreed with Gwen to study at home, for which Yi Hai gave away $5 million to the university. Unexpectedly, he was able to receive a $5 million grant and the friendship of Yi Hai bio industry. President Charlie was in a good mood and was very interested in Gwen's affairs, and soon completed the formalities. Drive Yi, can we talk? General Rose came over and said. Of course can. Yi Hai looked at the old man in front of him. He had white hair, but he was very spirited. This is an old man with iron blood, but he is still very ambitious. General Rose was also looking at Yi Hai. In his opinion, Yi Hai was young and tender, but his eyes were full of wisdom, always reminding him that this young man was different. I'm a soldier, and I said straight away. Our military appreciates Dr. Yi's ability and wants to cooperate on genetic modification. Rose said simply. No problem, but I need a condition. Seeing him so refreshed, Rose suddenly felt a joy in his heart and quickly asked, what? Yi Haijin's face suddenly disappeared. Your military must stop all persecution and testing of mutants, especially the scum in the army, such as X-weapon must be completely eradicated, and strikers should go on gallows. Quote. There was a little anger in General Rose's eyes, but after estimating Yi Hai's identity and ability, he thought for a while and said, I can't decide this problem by myself, but I will ask Congress and Mr. President. Although General Ross is a soldier, he knows the trade-offs. He understands Yi Hai's achievements in genetic engineering. He does not know how much better than the scientists under him, so he chose Yi Hai. Very well, General Ross, you made a right choice. Yi Hai stared directly at General Ross with a confident smile on his face, saying, as long as your military can satisfy me, I can ask you provide a potion to enhance soldiers' physical strength. Quote. Oh, Ross immediately got interested, and asked, what effect does Dr. Yi's medicine have? I know that your military has had a Superman warrior plan since World War II. Captain America is the best among them. I can make a batch of serum similar to Captain America. Yi Hai looked at Rose with a smile. He was sure that General Rose would be impressed, and even couldn't wait to get it. Rose moved. He hurriedly asked, you can make it in large quantities? Yes, I can. It can be produced in large quantities like my pure medicine. Yi Hai laughed. I will meet Captain America recently. I will use him as a sample to make a test product, then you can experiment. Quote. Rose took a deep breath, then slowly assured, Drive Yi, if you can do it, I will fully launch my ability and network to promote the mutants for you. Very well, we close the deal. The two shook hands and reached an agreement. Suddenly a soldier ran by, and Ross frowned. What happened, soldier? General, there is something wrong with that iceberg. There are many cracks on it, as if to explode. The soldier said worriedly. Oh, Yi Hai frowned slightly. Let's take a look. I guess that Hulk is coming out. The iceberg, which was more than 100 meters wide, has now shrunk a lot. The crystal clear surface is already covered with deep cracks. It seems that the beasts are about to escape. Because the iceberg is nearly 100 meters high, such a high thing is very obvious, naturally arousing the curiosity of many people. Many boring New Yorkers came here to watch. Although there are soldiers guarding, the school periphery is full of people. Seeing General Rose, he ordered, let those ordinary people leave here quickly. It is too dangerous to stay here. Yes, General. The soldiers rushed to evacuate the crowd, and those talents reluctantly walked away, but still gathered on the street or high-rise not far away just to see it. The soldiers were helpless and left it alone. Click, click. The ice was breaking faster and faster, and finally exploded, and in a beast-like roar, the Hulk emerged from the trap, flew into the sky, jumped out of the wide square, and climbed up on a high-rise building. The crowd watching in this building suddenly screamed in horror. Fortunately, the beast ignored them, but left in a hurry. Quick, quick, don't let him run away. General Ross immediately jumped on the helicopter, and several heavily armed helicopters chased the Hulk. Yi Hai didn't want to go for fun anymore. He had no intention to be a superhero. A few days passed by. Yi Hai was still in the laboratory. In the past few days, he focused his energy on the opening of the robot. After working hard for days and nights, he scored brilliantly. With several drawings of the robot, as long as there is a production factory, it can be put into production. Master, the investment department sent a message that the robot factory has been acquired and asked if you want to participate in the company transfer ceremony. Sha Nu reports work to Yi Hai as usual. Yi Hai waved his hand. No, I'm not free, just let Miss Natasha bring the transfer contract, and I'll sign it all at once. Okay, Master. 10 minutes later, Natasha walked in, and she was still in a tight black uniform. Mr. Chairman, this is a transfer contract for a robot factory, please sign it. Natasha's voice was crisp and soft, and a pair of phoenix eyes glanced at Yi Hai. Sure, no problem. Yi Hai took out his pen, signed his name with a few swipes, and left his hands behind. Anyway, his men would do it. Yi Hai has a supercomputer called Xuanvi who is monitoring these people. He is not worried about what these people are doing secretly. Miss Natasha, I haven't seen you recently. I seem to have asked you to take a few days off recently. Is it out of duty? Do you need my help? Yi Hai said with a smile. Natasha was angry, but she still had a bright smile on her face. She said sighingly, yeah, this mission is so dangerous. People almost died. Hey, my ability is too bad. If I can increase some skills, I can pay the price. Quote. Is this girl suggesting me? Yi Haley immediately regained his spirits, grabbed Natasha's small chin with his hand, and said, I can help you make some portable weapons, but it depends on what price you are willing to pay. Natasha said with a smile, you don't disapprove of my old woman. You look very young. Yi-hai looked at Natasha's delicate face and admired. And you have the beautiful beauty of a heroic posture, a perfect fusion of beasts and soft beauty. As long as a man can bear it, can't stop thinking of possessing you. Quote. Giggle. Natasha laughed with trembling flowers and swayed. Yi-hai's heat flow rose in his stomach. Yi-hai gasped, but did not move any further. Natasha looked at him with a smile and teased, "It seems you dare not be here. Are you afraid of your little girlfriend?" "Of course, she is my future wife, a sharer of my property and honor." "And you?" Yi-hai suddenly pinched Natasha's chin, pinching her with pain. "Just one of my playthings, you only in this role, so please remember your identity, Natasha." Quote. After speaking, he pushed gently. Natasha shrank back more than 10 meters before stopping her figure. Facing Yi-hai's insult, Natasha's face was extremely strong, and her face remained unchanged. She was beautiful. Staring at Yi-hai, he said softly, "Okay, Chairman, I have remembered your request. You can just wait for my call." In the end, she threw a wink at Yi-hai, and twisted away the pie strand. She wasn't angry at such a shame. Sure enough, the top agents were different. Yi-hai admired a bit. It is estimated that this woman did not use the section of this hand to do the agent work. I almost just said her. Master, judging from her heart rate and brainwave intensity just now, she was actually angry, but she did not show it. Zhan Nu said, "Master, this woman is very dangerous, very intentional, like lurking in the grass. The poisonous snake in it is very common. Zhan Nu advises her host not to provoke her. Otherwise, she will probably bite you back." Quote. Thank you for reminding me, Zhan Nu. Yi-hai drank a glass of Portuguese Dao wine, slowly saying, "I just play around casually. Such a sting rose is very suitable for my taste. I don't take it seriously, she can only my plaything, don't delusional manipulate me." Quote. Here, the door opened again, and Natasha in uniform came in again. She looked at Yi-hai with a smile on her face, with a proud smile on her face. "Why, Natasha, are you still reconciled when you go back?" Yi-hai walked by for a moment, holding her in her arms, and smelling a delicate fragrance in his nose. He frowned slightly, and smiled. "Which are you?" Giggle. Natasha broke away from Yi-hai's embrace and looked at Yi-hai with a smile. "It seems that you have an unclear relationship with your little secretary. You are not afraid that your little girlfriend will find out and break up with you?" While she was talking, her body floated, and a sloppy woman wrapped in scales appeared. "This is the ever-changing witch girl. If my girlfriend blows, it is easy to handle, you just become my girlfriend." Yi-hai smiled and smiled, teased. The witch-shaped woman shrugged and laughed. "I don't like being a substitute for others, and I don't like little farts. I am 50 to 60 years older than you. Well, devil girl, I don't like grandma either." Yi-hai smiled slightly and said, "You are back today, the mission is completed." The devil girl is increasingly dissatisfied with the cruelty of Wanchi King, and disapproves of Professor X's inaction, but after seeing Yi-hai, a new idea with a lot of ideas, temporarily followed Yi-hai's side. Yi-hai's task was to bring some mutant potions, and inject mutant potions to those lawmakers and tycoons who have great power to make them into mutants. If this happens, even if these guys will not change their attitude towards the mutants, they will not agree to the decree restricting the mutants. If you do this, you put a yoke on your neck and make yourself feel insecure. How could these wily guys do this kind of thing? "Yes, I think I did a good job," said the witch-shaped girl excitedly. "Drive ye, this month, as you have ordered, I will make influential people." The legislator has become a mutant, and there are 38 tycoons with close relations with the government, such as those in the United States, the Rockefeller Consortium, the Morgan Consortium, the First Citibank Consortium, the Stark Corporation of the arms dealer. Yi-hai spit out the drink in his mouth. "Wait, which, did you say Stark? Stark Arms Industry?" "Yes, is there anything wrong?" asked Moses, puzzled. "Drive ye, do you know the Tony Stark?" "No, I don't know, it's just known for a long time." Yi-hai grinned. "If Tony becomes a mutant, it's fun. I intend to bring this playboy into our camp, but unfortunately, more than a month ago, this playboy Tony was kidnapped by terrorists, but I heard that he likes his secretary, Little Pepper, Pearl Paws, so I turned this beautiful Shing-sensed woman into a mutant, as well as the actual controller Opedry Stein, and finally some media tycoons chose to become part of the mutant Promoting mutants is good. Quote. Yi-Hai was stunned. Iron Man's secretary, Pepper, turned into a mutant. The butterfly effect is really big enough. I don't know what expression Tony would have when he found that his secretary was a mutant. Yi-Hai stunned for several minutes and praised loudly, Devil, you have done a good job, do I need any reward? I can give you new abilities, and I can make your blue scale armor disappear and reveal here comes your delicate skin. Quote. The witch-shaped woman refused to hesitate, I have good scales. I have been like this since I was a child. I have been used to it, and it should be said that it is part of my body. But I still like it. Quote. Yi-Hai was a little surprised. Which woman doesn't like her beautiful appearance? This demon-shaped woman is so alert, isn't she unpretentious? Yi-Hai had some malicious thoughts in his heart. Then I recommend you to inject regenerative power, how about it? Yi-Hai finally proposed that regenerative ability can keep a person young forever, and can also recover quickly from injury. The witch-shaped woman thought about it and said, no, this ability is for the next time. I want to get the ability to penetrate the wall, so that I can immediately escape if exposed. It is also easy to complete your task. It seems pretty good. Yi-Hai was a little surprised that she was so serious in her work. She had such a professional spirit. Yi-Hai felt that she should not be so stingy, and said, I can give you another injection of regeneration ability so you are injured. It also recovers quickly, which is good for your battle. Quote. Okay, thanks for your generosity. The appearance of the witch-shaped woman as a business official made Yi-Hai helpless. Seriously, Yi-Hai still had some attempts at this witch-shaped woman. She could change a lot, and she could change the shape on the bed at will. If she let her, it's so cool to be a celebrity female star. Although Yi-Hai mastered the deformed gene, but this kind of metamorphosis is important. He dare not give it to someone who doesn't trust him. He can now fully trust, that is, his girlfriend Gwen, but unfortunately Yi-Hai proposed to Gwen the injection of a mutated gene last time, but Gwen saw his purpose at a glance and immediately rejected it. Quote. I gave it to me for 3 days, and I will prepare the serum for you through the wall penetration and regeneration ability. Yi-Hai said. Okay, the demonic girl nodded slightly, and asked, do you still need to inject human genes? Yi-Hai groaned slightly and shook his head. Now we will not increase the mutant allies for the time being. If there are too many, it will cause suspicion. You should be tired, you can rest for a while, go and play around. You can go to the Mutant Academy, there are a few old friends who really want to see you. Quote. The devil-shaped woman shook her head sadly, I'm afraid I have no time to play. I have a situation to tell you. What is it? Drive Yi, do you remember the mutant machine that you helped Wanchi Wong perfect? The devil girl rode, in the past month or so, he has used this machine to make many mutants. We can't let him do that anymore. Yi-Hai smiled. Isn't this what we originally planned? Let Wanchi Wong carry the blame for us. It seems Wanchi Wong is happy to carry this blame. Magneto keeps making mutants by using machines. Those politicians and tycoons who have been injected with a mutant human gene will definitely count this account on Magneto. They think they are sneaky, touch them to change them. Become a mutant, these people will certainly not be grateful, they will count this account to Wan Magnetic King, who makes Wan Magnetic King so high profile. But even if Wanchi Wong makes a mutant like this, his strength will become bigger and bigger, and this guy is very ambitious. At that time, I don't know what will happen. Yi-Hai shook her head disapprovingly, and smiled slightly. Devil, what do you think is my biggest advantage over Magneto? You have a strong ability to innovate. You are unparalleled in genetic technology. If you want, you can create a large army of mutants at any time. Devil Girl rode. This is the idea of many people, but unexpectedly, Yi-Hai shook his head and denied it. You're wrong, Devil Girl. He looked at Devil Girl one by one. My biggest advantage over Magneto is that I can be a level 5 mutant at any time. What? The devil-shaped woman ate at level 1, and looked at Yi-Hai with an incredible amount. Are you really a level 5 mutant? Yes, I am a 5th level mutant. Yi-Hai looked at the witch-shaped woman in shock. In your eyes, the 5th level mutant is as powerful as God. I am so. It is easy for me to kill Wan Magnetic King. So, no matter how noisy he is, I can manage him. The demonic woman frowned slightly. Drive Yi, don't belittle your enemies. Although the 5th level mutants are powerful, they are not invincible. At that time, Apocalypse was also a 5th level mutant. They killed together. I also knew something about you at that time. The main reason you were able to kill the Apocalypse was that there was another 5th level mutant Phoenix girl who let you kill the Apocalypse. Ye Haley immediately dismantled the lie of the witch, and laughed again. Of course, you were right, I am not invincible. I tell you my level, just to let you know that the gap between Magneto and me, the mutant he made using that machine, just miscellaneous soldiers. Potential mutants are self-awakening, and they are all awakened when they are young. They do not need to be stimulated by machines. Quote. BGCE blinked and said, yes, you are right, Dr. Yi, but there are more people and it is dangerous. The ability of mutants is much stronger than humans. But why do we hide? They have a large number of people. If the number of mutants increases, it will definitely oppress human living space, and a large-scale war between the two races will be inevitable. Quote. Isn't that better? Devil-shaped woman. Yi Hai said slowly, for almost 100 years, the mutants have been living like mice. Just because we are too weak, as long as our number increases, we can have a place in this world. As for war, hey, don't be afraid of war. Only through the means of war can we get our rights and interests, respected by mankind. Dignity and status are not dependent on others' alms, but with our own hands go for it. Quote. He was keenly aware of the smile on the corner of the devil's mouth, and then laughed. Devil, you mutant warrior, the famous mutant revolutionary will be afraid of war. You don't need to test me, devil. The witch girl laughed. Yes, you said a lot, we need to make us strong through war, but Dr. Yi, let ambitious people such as Wansiwang control the mutants, don't you worry. Yi Hai smiled and said, the so-called rush to beat the first bird, Wan Magnetic King is just my experiment, let him go to charge and see how humans in this world will deal with him. The witch-shaped woman saw that he had a well-built figure, and was a little puzzled in her heart. Can this little ghost really cope with this complicated situation? However, thinking of Yi Hai's demon evil intelligence quotient, the demon-shaped woman chose to believe in Yi Hai. After leaving Yi Hai's laboratory, Natasha walked downstairs and walked out of Yi Hai biology building. She still had a mission this time and needed to meet someone. A legend who has lived for more than half a century. Natasha drove her luxury car and went straight to a hidden military residential area, stopping in a small building. Some soldiers in the vicinity saw Natasha, a beautiful woman who was tempted by Ren, and walked over quickly, saying, well, a beautiful woman driving a luxury car, how about drinking? Go away, soldier, I have an appointment today. Natasha said with a smile, but her eyes were cold, and the anger of being humiliated by Yi Hai in the laboratory would not be dissipated yet. Looking at these soldiers, suddenly she smiled happily, she finally found a punching bag. Your little boyfriend is not strong enough, believe me, my cannon will definitely make you cool. A bald-headed man sprayed wine in his mouth, shaking his waist with impunity. The drunkards beside him also laughed, and suddenly Natasha's smile sank, and she immediately shot. What? Their laughter came to an abrupt end. Natasha's hands and feet were broken cleanly by Natasha, while several other drunks couldn't get any better. Several drunks were lying alive on the ground, but Natasha's smile on her face made them shudder. Natasha kicked the bald-headed man and laughed softly, your cannon is awesome. It was just a fierce step on the step of the bald man, and the bald man screamed and passed out. Hearing the scream of this man, Natasha was so relaxed, her anger disappeared, and she was about to leave. Someone on the ground scolded. Dead, son, I remember you, I will turn you over sooner or later. Natasha instantly stopped her body and turned towards her. Her eyes were full of anger, and her face was extremely gloomy. Enough, Natasha, you have punished them. Suddenly a man's voice came. This is a young man with a firm face and a tall body. The muscles in his body contain explosive power without losing the masculine beauty. He walked slowly, walking very casually, but giving a forest. The king's sense of inspecting his territory was majestic but not intimidating. This is a man with a lot of stories, because this person is Captain America Steve Rogers, Natasha's purpose this time. Natasha, they offended you, but your means were too terrible. Captain America frowned. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm in a bad mood today, who made them hit me without knowing it? Natasha said indifferently. Fighting in special military camps is commonplace. Captain, would you like to get justice for them? Quote. No, that's their thing. They just learned the lesson, and it has nothing to do with me. Captain America faintly walked towards a path. Natasha immediately followed and said as she walked, Steve, I heard that since you woke up, you have to stay at home either on a mission or at home. Don't you feel bored? You shouldn't be so tense. You find a few women to relax yourself. Quote. The woman's tone of speech was like a good buddy. He asked him to pick up a girl. Captain America couldn't help crying, and felt slightly uncomfortable. I'm fine, Natasha. I'm a soldier. I've been used to this life. Captain America said. No, you are too old-fashioned, do you know, Steve? Natasha smiled and said, the times are different now, you should try to integrate into this new world. Well, I will work hard, Natasha. Captain America was slightly uncomfortable with her enthusiasm, and asked, do you come to me just to talk to me? Of course not, today I came to see you for someone, a little ghost. Natasha exclaimed. Oh, Captain America was surprised at her expression and couldn't help asking, who is it? Yi-hi Lab. Captain America, hello, I'm so glad to see you. Yi-hi hugged Captain America very enthusiastically, and said happily, my girlfriend admires you very much. I think she will see you. You asked for a signature. Quote. Yes, I must have a Captain America signature. At this time, Gwen accidentally entered the laboratory, ran over quickly, and took out a notebook. Hello Captain, I grew up listening to your story from a young age. I remember when I was young, I listened to my father speaking of you killing the Nazi devil Hitler. Quote. Sorry, miss, I didn't kill Hitler, Hitler committed suicide. Captain America reluctantly corrected, this little girl will not have a bad history. I know, but isn't that the story? I like your story. Ha ha. Gwen laughed, her smile was brilliant and innocent. Captain America likes this smile. He believes that people with such smiles must be pure people. They are not Natasha's smile with poisonous stings, which requires people to be vigilant and careful. Well, Gwen, don't be too excited. Yi-hi patted Gwen's head, we have more work to do. Gwen just smiled and stood aside, not interfering with their affairs. Captain, besides letting my girlfriend see you this time, look, my girlfriend likes you very much, doesn't it? Yi-hi smiled, and then said, the other thing is to check your body data, and then make superhuman serum based on your samples. Quote. You can make a serum like me. Captain America was slightly surprised, admiring at random. It seems that the world is changing very fast, and now the genetic technology is very powerful. Yi-hi just smiled slightly and did not explain. Natasha laughed aside. Steve, in fact, our scientists have studied your serum for decades, and although some of it has been copied, it has not reached the level like you, and it is scarce. Until now, only Dr. Yi has the ability to fully replicate your serum, and can achieve mass production. She scorned and said, of course, this is what he said, if he can do it, only he knows it. Or he didn't know it, just bragging. Quote. Yi-hi secretly pinched her mouth, and sure enough women were careful. Rest assured, I will definitely satisfy you. Gwen, you can help the captain to get some blood. We will start to check the captain's physical data. Yi-hi began to command everyone, and even Natasha was no exception. There were things to do. Natasha's boss was unwilling, but still pretended to be very happy. But how can she conceal Yi-hi from such a contrition? Yi-hi's fourth-level brain can observe subtle changes in expression, and no matter how the acting of the emperor level is useless, it is clear in his eyes. After several hours of data measurement, Yi-hi frowned and asked, Captain, your physical fitness is now very good, almost reaching the peak of your body. Peak, yeah, but after you wake up frozen, yes, didn't you find yourself in a worse shape? Quote. Yes. Captain America nodded slightly. Do you know why? It's your mental problem. Yi-hi slowly said, you must be very depressed now, a little confused, right? You often remember the past alone, right? Yes, I'm an elderly person and I like to remember the past. Captain America sighed, sighing painfully, I have no comrades and friends here, they are all dead, only I am alive. Quote. Everyone looked at him sympathetically, but did not know how to comfort him. Natasha comforted softly. Steve, you don't have to be sad, you always have new friends and comrades. Captain America nodded slightly, and the iron-blooded experience trained his steel-like will. He quickly looked away and said, "Drive Yi, do you mean my ability is affected by my spirit?" "Yes." Yi Hai nodded slightly and said, "Your physical strength is affected by your spirit and will. The firmer your will and the more pure your spirit, the stronger your strength will be. You can say your body strength is governed by your spirit and will. Your strength is not acceptable to ordinary people. You must have iron-like will and pure spirit to control your strength. If ordinary people inject your serum, also it just becomes a more powerful soldier. It is basically impossible to reach your height." Quote. It turned out to be this way. Everyone was surprised. Natasha frowned. "Just say, Superman fighters like Captain America can't mass produce. As long as you exercise the will and spirit of the soldiers, you can become a Superman soldier like Captain America." Yi Hai shrugged slightly and said with a smile, "I have taught you the methods, you can't do it yourself, that's your business." Quote. Impatient with Yi Hai, Natasha was speechless, and she was doubtful about Yi Hai's words. "Drive Yi, is that really the case?" "Don't believe it." Yi Hai smiled. Hee. "It's a very simple question. As long as I make a few serums, you can take it for an experiment." "You can make a serum now?" Natasha wondered. "Are you white, idiot?" Yi Hai gave her a white look. "I haven't started researching how it can be made, but this simple serum is not difficult for me. Just give me a few days and I would make a finished product." Quote. Then he said loudly, "Okay, everyone is out, I am going to start the research phase." He actually ordered the order directly. Captain America was a bit uncomfortable with the rhythm of Yi Hai. He still had many questions to ask Yi Hai, but he was driven out unceremoniously. Soon, only Yi Hai and his female assistant Gwen remained in the laboratory. Gwen didn't speak, just looked at Yi Hai quietly. The atmosphere was weird. After a long time, Yi Hai couldn't stand it and said, "What's wrong? Isn't that girl very Xing?" Gwen said with a smile, but inexplicable vigilance was hidden in her eyes. "Is that so?" Yi Hai pretended to be confused, and said with a pinch of mouth, "It's just an experienced woman, where you are better than you." Yi Hai's expression is very realistic. His super brain knows every muscle and skin well, and will never show flaws. Gwen can't see it, and he breathes a sigh of relief. The pace of the two was very fast, and they began to organize and analyze the data. Finally, the equations were calculated. Yi Hai, who has a 4-level brain domain, is faster for these amount, but now it took him only 3 days to complete it, and then it took 2 days to allocate the potion. Ding! Captain America's cell-enhanced serum has been developed and rewarded 20,000 scientific values. Finally, I got 20,000 scientific values, and 10,000 points can open the 5th-level brain domain, which means that Yi Hai can temporarily become a 5th-level mutant. This is like a crisis in his increasingly crisis situation. Like the peace of mind, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Yi Hai couldn't help but smile easily. "Gwen, have you found that Captain America's cells are different from ordinary people?" Gwen thought about it and said, "I know, his cells are stronger than ordinary people." "Well, even our mutants are much stronger." Yi Hai stared at the medicament in his hands with a gaze, and smiled happily. "Yes, this is our biggest gain. I have basically learned about the strength of enhanced cells by studying the blood data of Captain America in recent days. It is estimated I can complete it in a day or 2. Once our cells have been strengthened, we can further inject the mutant human gene. This is really a surprise. I don't have any clue about the cells of Hulk, but in the United States, the captain found a way." Quote. Gwen smiled slightly. "It's only useful for your metamorphosis. It's not useful to me. I have more injection skills and will be downgraded. Unless you can improve my mental strength." "I don't know how to improve your mental strength. This requires you to ask the magician, if you can find a magician." Speaking of magicians, Yi Hai remembered that one of the most famous magicians on the Marvel world is Doctor Strange. Maybe he has a way to improve his mental strength. Gwen was surprised. Does something like this magical world really exist? Of course, but very rare. We are unlikely to come across, but we can let the SHIELD find them. Their eyeliners are all over the world, and they should be able to find them. Yi Hai smiled. "That's great. Let's go to SHIELD, Gwen suggested. Superman elixir has been manufactured, and it has reached the experimental stage. This needs to be carried out at the shield base. Yi-Hai contacted the Black Widow Natasha, and Natasha immediately notified the headquarters. When Natasha came to the laboratory, she heard a violent jet from the window, and a huge black shadow came over. I saw a tens of meters of floating fighter floating outside the window, a hatch opened, and Eagle Eye looked at Yi-Hai with a cold face. Yi-Hai smiled slightly, suddenly stopped the two with his arms left and right, flew out of the window, and fell into the fighter plane. After the three fell to the ground, Natasha was still fine, and Gwen angrily twisted Yi-Hai's waist a few times, letting him take a few breaths. Natasha looked in her eyes, and the corner of Xing's sense evoked an arc of mystery. Eagle's eyes glanced at Natasha, and there was a mockery in her cold eyes, and he seemed to be telling her, well, got another man. Natasha didn't see it. She said in a clear voice, Yi-Hai, Gwen, this time we are flying to the carrier of the Shield Air Base. I hope you will not leak this trip. No problem, Yi-Hai promised with a mouthful and smiled. I have heard of the flying carrier for a long time, and would like to see it. This time I finally have a chance. The fighter jet flew up into the sky and quickly rushed into the clouds. A huge battle fortress floating on the white clouds is floating in the sky. This is the flying carrier. After the pilot issued an invitation to land, he drove the fighter to quickly fly above the flying carrier and then slowly descended. After opening the hatch, Shield Nick walked over quickly, with a smile on his black face. Drive Yi, welcome to the flying carrier. Hello, Chief Nick. Yi-Hai smiled slightly. The two shook hands friendly and walked towards the building on the flying carrier. Nick said as he walked, Drive Yi, I have arranged the experimental staff. These are the elite of our shield. I think your potion should be able to work. Yi-Hai laughed. Captain America's serum is special. His strength performance requires strong will and pure spirit. Director Nick, if your men are as experienced as Captain America in battle, I want to reach Captain America. There is no problem. Nick suddenly smiled bitterly. Captain America was able to endure hundreds of battles. That was because he had gone through the arduous years of World War II. His men were all agents, and it was impossible to have the opportunity to enter the battlefield on a large scale. Is Captain America's potion suitable for those soldiers? Nick frowned. Yi-Hai slightly dismissed. Now that American weapons are so advanced and the enemies we face are so weak, do you think our American soldiers can experience the kind of hardships of World War II? Nick nodded slightly. You're right, that's true. Dr. Yi, it seems that the Superman warrior serum you developed can only make elites. Yes, but isn't this more in line with the characteristics of your agents? Yi-Hai smiled at Nick. Nick nodded and smiled. You were right. We can't have too many agents. We can only make elites. Your potion can satisfy our shield, but the military is probably disappointed. They have always dreamed of creating Superman. Where is the soldier army? Yi-Hai indifferently loosened his shoulders, jokingly, if aliens invade in the future, I think our soldiers will grow up quickly. He had never thought about greatly improving the physical fitness of the U.S. military. The U.S. military is already strong enough on this earth. If it is to increase significantly, they still do not want to dominate the world. Jean was guilty of World War because of his potion. And it is not in his interest, because his camp is a mutant, and if the American soldiers are too strong, the mutants will be hit hard. Several people entered the interior of the flying carrier, and after passing through several corridors, they came to a wide training ground. There were more than a dozen men and women of different heights, all of them standing solemnly, without saying a word. The radiating momentum shows that they are all elites in the army. Nick introduced. These are the elites we have selected from various military forces. Several of them are kings of the army. After hundreds of battles, they have made outstanding contributions to the peace of the United States. Yi-Hai only said that he looked at it slightly, and then said, all right, let's start the experiment. Gwen put the password box in his hand on a table, and after opening it, a cold mist sprayed out. The box had a cooling function. At this time, a special medical staff of S.H.I.E.L.D. took over Gwen's job. They carefully took out the green potion and put it into some machines. After a simple inspection, one of the doctors asked, Dr. Yi, does this medicine need any attention? Is it painful? S.H.I.E.L.D. has also developed a lot of Superman potions, but most of them have little effect, and the process of change is very painful, and some even collapse because they can't stand the pain. My potions are mild. Although there is some pain, I think your soldiers can afford it. Yi Hai said. The doctor was a little hesitant. Yi Hai said too general, he didn't dare to inject these drugs without specific data. At this moment a tall black man muffled and said, Drive Taylor, give us an injection. This little pain, we can bear it. The black man was proud and confident, full of senseless spirit, and the expressions of more than 10 soldiers beside him were all the same. Yi Hai nodded slightly. These people are indeed some elite, as Nick said. At this point Nick spoke, and he put his face on his face and said, Drive Yi has made many kinds of medicines, and he has never missed them. You can rest assured that you have a bold injection. Yes, now that the secretary has spoken, if something happens, he will not be responsible. The standing agents kept silent, as if several people were talking about something that had nothing to do with them. These agents are extremely tough, just like a cold machine. As long as the superior orders, they will not hesitate to execute. The pain of injecting drugs is just a trivial matter to them. It turned out to be the case. The pain after the injection did not make them scream, even though their body was constantly trembling with pain and trembling, sweat was flowing. Natasha looked at Yi Hai with a strange look, and seemed to say to him, This is a bit of pain you said. It can show them how painful it is. Dr. Taylor was worried, and quickly asked the nurses to check everyone's health, and everything was normal. After more than an hour, the agent's pain gradually disappeared and eventually returned to normal. Natasha frowned as she looked at these people and said, Nothing seems to change, you don't see any increase in the muscles of these people. I remember Captain America was a thin little man before the serum injection. Yi Hai smiled. Natasha, if you don't believe it, you can find someone to single out and see if you can beat them. How could I not beat them? Natasha opened her beautiful long legs, walked forward, and said softly, Ladies, who are you to compare with me? Natasha is a veteran special agent. She has experienced many battles. She is proficient in all kinds of fighting skills after hundreds of battles. She can deal with the king of soldiers in the eyes of ordinary people. The agents did not blink, and the tall black man came out and said, My name is Owen Stillwell, are you the top agent Natasha? Yes, kid. Natasha smiled softly. Let me see if you can flip me. As you wish. Owen yelled like a beast, rushing forward, and was so imposing that Natasha stepped forward without stepping back, suddenly reaching out with both hands, and a back slammed the tall black man away by more than 10 meters away. Boom. The dull banging sound announced that Natasha had won the game. Natasha gave Yi Hai a proud glance, and was very disdainful of these agents. Ghost, it seems that even if you have injected the booster potion, it is still waste. The mocking tone angered these agents. When someone stood up to fight Natasha, the Orn who fell to his feet and muttered, I just took care, Natasha, you really said become a top agent. Let's try again. Quote. With that said, he came slowly, his footwork was steady and strong, his eyes sharp and cold. Now that this beast is fully hunting, he will skillfully use his various skills, instead of being as reckless as before, only using brute force. He now understands that against top-level agents like Natasha, he just uses brute force and naturally loses miserably. Natasha's heart stunned slightly, and she began to take it seriously. Does not have the frivolous expression just now. Owen still started to take the initiative to attack. He rushed over and hit Natasha's face with one punch. The punch was very fierce, bringing out a dull storm. Natasha just avoided her head, and kicked him underneath down again. Her toes pierced Natasha's slender abdomen like a knife, and she did not show mercy because Natasha was a beautiful woman. Natasha slammed Owen's kick with a punch, and Owen took a forward shot, grabbed Natasha's collar, and cast a shot from behind. He is as tall as a stupid bear, but he is agile like a wild cat, and moves extremely fast. Natasha was not bad for a while, and he was caught by him. Owen lifted Natasha in the air lightly, made a few laps, and suddenly slammed Natasha on the ground. Natasha's painful pupil shrank, and she couldn't stand for a while. Owen proudly laughed and said, Chick, I'm going to kill you. Natasha bounced off the ground and yelled, Come again. Natasha rushed up and the two started fighting again. They fought very fiercely, using all kinds of means, and they were extremely energetic. Even after more than an hour of continuous fighting, they were still alive and well, without seeing their exhaustion. In this more than an hour, The two had their own wins and losses. Owen won 9 times, and Natasha had a wealth of fighting skills to win 11 times. Well, you two, stop. Nick clapped his hands, preventing the two from continuing the fight. The two stopped and Natasha came to Yi-Hai's side with her sweat and said, "This Owen is really a good opponent. It is estimated that after he is skilled, I will no longer be his opponent, but he is incomparable with Captain America, and is much worse than Steve in terms of strength, agility and physical strength." Quote. Nick reluctantly said, "No old soldier like Captain America can be found now. Orn is already the strongest soldier we can find out." "That's a pity," Natasha said. Gwen teased slightly. "Natasha, it looks like your skill is in the shield BGDE. This newbie who has just injected a medicine can reach a tie with you. If there are many new people trained in medicine, aren't you very destitute at shield?" Quote. Natasha froze slightly. She didn't really think about it, because she was not good at frontal battles, and when she saw Gwen's slightly intriguing expression, she giggled. "I wasn't a warrior in charge, I was for spying. I rely on my talents to get the intelligence that shield needs." Quote. "Does that also include using your beauty?" Gwen mocked rudely. Of course, Natasha was not easy to mess with. Slender fingers nodded on Yi-Hai's shoulder and said, "Just like Yi-Hai, if he wants, I don't mind sacrificing some beauty, color." Gwen's face suddenly turned black, and he scolded in his heart, "Dead, son. That's enough, Sao." Yi-Hai regarded these two women's fighting as if he hadn't seen them and said to Nick, "Director Nick, are you satisfied with these soldiers?" Nick nodded with satisfaction. "It's not bad. I think they will become excellent agents after some training." "You're satisfied. You can send me specific data after a few days of testing. If there are any problems, I will make improvements," Yi-Hai said. Nick's mouth was drawn, and he could still improve it. Does this guy treat people as mechanical products and can add spare parts? He didn't say nod and said, "Okay, Dr. Yi, I'll pay attention. After you have tested it, you will give the test result to General Ross. My product needs to be provided to the military." "No problem. Then we have a good cooperation. Director Nick, don't forget the agreement between us." "I won't forget, Dr. Yi. The agreement between the two is the same as that of the military, that is, Yi-Hai helps them make Superman Warrior Serum, and they put pressure on the government to stop oppressive behaviors and policies against mutants." Originally Nick was afraid that he could not complete the agreement, but recently Congress was a bit different. Especially after the US president became a mutant, his views on the mutants have changed greatly. He expected that the bill to treat the mutants is likely to be passed by Congress. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.